wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing a really easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket back in the 1800s. Any bowler who managed to get 3 successive wickets used to be rewarded with a hat from their club. Next up, if you see a skillful tackle, an athletic save or a 40-yard screamer, you might say these things are out the top drawer. That's because back in Victorian times, if you had wealth, valuable stuff, you kept it in the top drawer of your dresser, so loaded families became known as top drawer. Remember the last time your team left you feeling as sick as a parrot? The image of the sick bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, but the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal, as we say in my country." Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
Oh yes, it is the Transfer Insiders, and good evening and welcome. It is me, Nick Bryant, and alongside me, Dan Bardell. And this is just raging on and on. The Isak and Sesko saga continues. We will try and keep on top of it as Manchester United, well, they've come in with their latest official bid. Dan's also going to try to tell us why Aston Villa haven't done any business this window, or have they? Because there's some breaking news that we're seeing floating around tonight. We'll get into that in a bit. We'll get the latest as well from around Europe. And Everton could make a move for Manchester City's Jack Grealish after their deal for Tyler Diblin seems to be hitting the buffers. You can get in touch, of course. We love hearing from you on the show. You can text us 81089, WhatsApp or call us on 03717 22 3344. We want to hear from you, and you can watch us live as well on YouTube and your smart TV if you want to check that out. This, though, is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. Welcome along then, and I should say good evening to the man to my left in this snazzy brand new studio, Dan Bardell. It's nice in here, isn't it, mate?
It is nice. It's got that kind of new studio smell. You know, when you got a new car, it smells nice.
Does it smell the same?
No, it just smells. There's a different kind of buzz, a different kind of smell in there, and I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah. I thought that was just my aftershave, but clearly not. No, but it is very nice. If you are listening to us on the radio, and you can actually have a look at the new studios, as I say, your smart TV and on YouTube, make sure you do. But life is good. All good, Dan? You double shifting today?
Yeah, done a lot today. Had a busy day, 21-hour day for me today. So don't let anyone ever tell you that working in football media is easy. 21 hours. Look at that. He puts the work in, this man. That's for sure. I did a little bit of a double shift as well. I was on Inside Gooners earlier on. That's out now, by the way. So if you are an Arsenal supporter and you're listening to this, give it a watch on the talkSPORT YouTube. Right, I guess we should start with
Alexander Isak, Benjamin Sesko, the saga continues. Newcastle are ready to reluctantly cash in on Alexander Isak if they land Benjamin Sesko, talkSPORT understands. Well, as reported on Monday night, the Magpies are hopeful of completing a deal for Sesko after making a fresh offer of 70 million plus add-ons. You've got to remember the add-ons these days. It's all about the add-ons. Sources have told talkSPORT Sesko's arrival would pave the way for want-away striker Isak to move to Liverpool, providing the two clubs can agree a fee. But earlier on this afternoon, Manchester United then submitted an official bid for Sesko, £65 million, with over £8.9 million in add-ons. Right, this one just seems to be raging on and on.
Yeah, it's Isak. Obviously, you're an Arsenal fan. At the start of the window, we all kind of thought, will Isak go to Arsenal? Will Arsenal make a move for Isak? It felt like the kind of no-brainer transfer of the summer. Then it kind of moved into the fact that Newcastle don't need to sell this player. Newcastle are in the Champions League that themselves. We were expecting a big summer from them. That hasn't quite it hasn't materialised at all. Then suddenly from nowhere, Liverpool just went after two of the premium forwards that are available in this transfer window, got one done kind of from underneath Newcastle's noses, and now they're trying to take their main man as well. I didn't expect the kind of saga around this with all the stuff that had gone on beforehand with Isak and Newcastle that we found out about since. I didn't expect all of that. He's obviously very unhappy. He obviously wants to make this move to Liverpool. Usually when a player wants to make a move of this magnitude, it happens. But there's obviously that gap in valuation at the moment.
Yeah, it's a mad one, isn't it? Because, I think, honestly, and there'll be Liverpool fans listening to this right now, I don't even think Liverpool fans, if you'd have said to them at the start of this window, would they get the amount of business done that they look to be getting done? That they'd have said no. Florian Wirtz coming in, that was amazing on its own. Frimpong coming in, amazing on its own. And then from there, kind of Ekitike came out of nowhere. That got done. Kirkes got done as well. And, if this happens, if Isak happens, then that puts their transfer business into a different stratosphere. And in terms of windows, probably one of the best I can remember in my lifetime.
Yeah, they're building a frightening squad. Now you look at some of the players that aren't going to get into that team now if everyone's fit, if they do sign Isak. Szoboszlai was excellent last season, wasn't he? Absolutely superb. He's probably not in their best 11 now. To have they haven't had a genuine centre forward for a while, because Firmino, the way he played, wasn't really a stereotypical number 9. It hasn't really worked with Darwin Núñez. So Liverpool have been kind of looking for that bona fide number 9, or the Liverpool fans have been looking for that bona fide number 9 for a long time now. Kind of end up with 2.
Why do you think it didn't work for Darwin Núñez at Liverpool? Because, obviously he came from the Portuguese league, and, some people argue that, the Portuguese league isn't the best example. But just in terms of, him as a player, I think he's got decent size, decent heading ability, decent pace, decent power, all of the attributes. But for whatever reason, they've just not managed to make that relationship work.
I genuinely think if you go back right to the start, if you remember his debut, he's got a lovely kind of flicked finish against Fulham away at Craven Cottage, but then in the next game, he got sent off. And I feel like, I know that's very early days, but I feel that almost curbed him. And then from then on, I don't think he's ever kind of rediscovered that killer instinct or that confidence. And when you haven't got either of those things, it's obviously going to be very difficult to make that move a success. They overpaid for him, let's face it. But the Portuguese league isn't full of mugs, is it? If you look at some of the players that are in the PSG team, they came from the Portuguese league. The Manchester City team that won the treble, a lot of that team came from the Portuguese league as well. Sometimes transfers just don't work, and the Liverpool fans have stayed with him and got behind him. Liverpool fans are excellent at doing that kind of thing. They did it with Peter Crouch as well when he was there and he was struggling. But I think now they've kept the powder dry generally over the last couple of windows. It's stood them in good stead, because the squad that they're going to be able to build, if they get everyone that they want, and because I think they'll probably get a centre-back as well at some point. They've sold well this window as well. Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich got the top end probably of what he's worth. But they won the league without Schlott buying any players that he wanted. Now he's got players that he wants there as well. It's going to take a lot to stop them this season.
Yeah, agree. Well, this morning on Oladipo and Jordan, Simon gave his opinion on what club he thinks would suit Sesko better.
Newcastle comes with expectation, but doesn't come with the same pressure that Man United comes from. You know, whilst people focus on Newcastle, and they focus on it because Newcastle makes a lot of noise, because it's a very passionate football club and the fans are very motivated by it, it doesn't have the day-to-day scrutiny that Man United has. It doesn't matter what happens. You can fight in the corridor of Man United and it's heard around the world. It's not the same at Newcastle.
It's a very interesting analogy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean in terms of what people focusing and really dialing into what happens at Man United. You've got Ruben Amorim that's presiding over a 12-year decline of Manchester United and trying to, and Ocean Liners don't turn fast, he's trying to correct it, and I think he's making lots of missteps, but then we probably all would if we were in his shoes. Whereas Newcastle, despite the frustrations around ESIC, despite the frustrations of people perhaps using it as a stepping stone club, and they might not like to hear that, but it is a reality. I don't think you lose very much by going to Newcastle. You go there, you're playing on a side that's ambitious, but is a step below the radar. You go and perform at a high level, the opportunity comes again.
Simon Jordan there. Back tomorrow, of course, 10 a.m. alongside Ade Oladipo. So Simon Jordan, Dan, thinks that Newcastle is the smart choice for Benjamin Sesko, and I'm gonna continue saying Sesko. I know some people are going down the Sesko route, but I'm sticking to my guns. What do you think, United or Newcastle?
I'll probably do both with the Sesko as we go through, but by accident. At the moment, Newcastle are the ones that are closer to hitting the price point that Leipzig want. I think Leipzig have shown in the past that, you know, people don't hit their price point, they're quite happy to just carry on and keep the player. I think Sesko hasn't been the kind of player to kick up a stink over the last few years. Maybe could have moved in previous windows. For me, if I'm a footballer, I look at what's gone on at Manchester United in the last few years, and I look at Newcastle and what they've done, a team that's currently playing in the Champions League. I would want to play in the highest pedigree competition possible, and at the moment, that is Newcastle in the Champions League. Both have got problems in the way that they're running differing aspects at the moment. Newcastle have had a really turbulent, difficult summer that I don't think they would have expected, and the fans will be disappointed because they'll have really wanted to build on what was a fantastic season last season, winning a cup and qualifying for the Champions League for the second time in 3 years. Manchester United has just been a graveyard for players, in particular strikers, and you only have to look at Højlund, Xerxes and their struggles. If I was a footballer, I'd be reluctant to go there, but then I guess if a footballer's got the right personality, they may think, well, actually, I'm going to go there and be the guy to turn it around.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And look, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, but it is Manchester United. They are still the biggest club in the country, one of the biggest clubs in the world. You know, the draw there is massive. So much so that, you know, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be quite annoyed because, you know, we're in the Champions League now. We're where we've wanted to be for so long. I know they got into the Champions League a couple of years ago, but you know what I mean? We're where we wanted to be. We're at the upper echelons of the Premier League. We're in the Champions League now. This is where a club like Newcastle, single club city as well, all of that stuff, a club like Newcastle should be. Yet we can't attract, or potentially he might go to Newcastle, let me just caveat that, but if he goes to Manchester United, we can't attract a top talent ahead of a club that aren't in the Champions League.
I mean, if this summer's anything to go by, Newcastle won't get him because they haven't got anyone that they've tried to get this summer. The rules don't help. Look, whatever you think of Newcastle's ownership, they aren't able to spend the money that they want to spend. And there's other clubs, my club Villa, are finding exactly the same thing. The rules almost stop you being able to compete. Now, when Newcastle got taken over, I think we all thought they're going to go and buy everyone. They've got endless pots of cash, but they can't because of the rules. And since then, Newcastle have done well. They've won a trophy. They've qualified for the Champions League twice, like I've just said. But they kind of can't take that next step because they haven't got the revenues that the Chelseas, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, all those clubs have got, because historically they've been able to get those revenues in. If we went back to when Manchester City or Chelsea got taken over, if they weren't allowed to spend the money, if those rules were in place, Chelsea and Man City wouldn't be what they are today. But because they were able to spend that money and do what they wanted, have free reign when the owners first came in, they've managed to make themselves the big beast that they are today. Newcastle can't do that. So for me, because of the revenues and because of stuff like that, wherever Manchester United are and wherever Newcastle are, at the moment, Newcastle can't pay as much as Manchester United, which is a big thing. So it's going to get more and more difficult for teams like Newcastle to usurp Manchester United because they're not allowed to.
Yeah, until they're bringing in more revenue. Yeah. This is the conundrum. You've got to be an accountant now to be a football fan, it would seem, you know what I mean? Right, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org. Yeah, welcome back to the Transfer Insiders then. It is Nick Bryant and Dan Bardell in our shiny new studio. You good, Dan?
Yeah, really good, mate.
Yeah. We'll talk Villa in a bit because there might be some breaking transfer news this evening.
My dream, walking in and then suddenly some news breaks as we're about to come in the studio. Absolutely fantastic.
We'll get into Villa shortly, but it's time now to get an odds update with Ladbrokes.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
And let's say hello to Chris Wood from Ladbrokes. Chris, are you with us, my friend?
Yes, how are you doing, lads?
Yes, good. I'm glad you're there. I was unsure, but we've got you. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
Go-karting with the kids today, so in bits. But other than that.
Did you win?
You never win at my age, mate. My son beat me.
I think I'm the only one here without. If you were going up against your kids, Dan, would you give them a chance? Would you?
Nah, I'd go all guns blazing. I'd try my best.
Same.
Right. Oh no, I'm definitely trying my best. I just get nowhere near him. I mean,
What are the odds on you winning? Have we got odds on that? Not quite.
From this point onwards, I'm a decent 100-1 shot, I think.
All right. Okay. Good to know. I might take you up on that one. Who knows? Right. Rangers in action tonight, though.
Rangers are home to Blitzen in the Champions League qualifiers. Rangers are 23-20 to win, and the draws in at 12-5. Blitzen are the same price, 12-5. Rangers to qualify are 4-5, and Blitzen are 10-11. Got to confess, my knowledge of the Czech Republic teams not huge, but obviously Russell Martin's looking for a huge reaction there after a really, really disappointing start for Rangers. He's gone with the players that have played quite well for him so far. Cyril Dessa's going to lead the line. He's 5-1 to score the first goal, 19-10 any time. Gassama, who's had a reasonable start to the season as well, he's 13-2 to score the first goal and 5 to score any time. And if you fancy Ant-Man, the new signing up on the wing, if you fancy him to put a superhero performance in, he's 9-1 to score the first goal, 7-2 to score any time, and 28-1 to score 2 or more. Matej Vidra for the opponents, obviously a name that everyone knows. He's had a good start to the season in the Czech Republic. I think he scored 3 in 3 and 2. He's 8-1 to score the first goal and 3-1 to score any time.
Right, yeah. So it's been a little bit tricky, hasn't it, for Rangers? Sticky start to the season, it would seem. I mean, listen, I know it was only a draw, but
it's a horrible performance. Yeah, it's really, really bad.
As is the way in Scottish football. It's like every dropped point when it's Rangers or Celtic feels terminal. And to those Rangers supporters, they'll need the team to kind of show everybody what they can do tonight.
Yeah, and we all know the way that Russell Martin plays. He really needs players to buy into the style that he's going to put. And if there are players that are slightly unsure about it, he will just get rid of them.
Do you think, Dan, that Rangers can show a little bit more this season? Obviously, they don't want Celtic running away with it again. The rivalry's so fierce up there, but Celtic been on top for quite a few years now. Do you think Rangers are back in the mix?
It's so hard to bridge the gap, and I would say Russell Martin's gone in there and he's very angry. Early doors, it's a very brave move this early into your tenure, kind of almost throwing your players under the bus at the weekend, but he's gone there. He's a brave man, but I can't see Rangers usurping Celtic this season at all.
No,
not for me.
All right.
No, it's interesting as well. Tavernier's not playing tonight, and that's a huge move because he's obviously been there for such a long time. He's captain, takes the set pieces, takes the penalties, scores loads from sort of midfield and defence. I think that's a huge move. So.
All right, Premier League top scorer then. What have you got for me?
Yeah, so obviously with all the sort of transfer rumours, the market's quite fluid at the moment. Haaland is our favourite, 11-8. Isak's in just behind him at 4-1. Salah's pushed out to 13-2 because obviously the sort of idea is that Isak, if or when he goes, is going to take some of Salah's goals off him. And then sort of next in, we've got the other new signing, Gyökeres for Arsenal. He's 11-2. Ekitike is 25-1. And I think if I sort of had a look at the market and the sort of price that Sesko would go in at if he signs for Newcastle, I think he'd be around the sort of 16-1 mark, and I'd probably have him slightly bigger if he was to go to Manchester United, probably around the 20-1 mark. I think sort of in behind there could be a little bit of each way value. Though I think Ollie Watkins, I don't know what the transfer news is that is coming out of Villa, but I think given that there's not a lot of competition for places up front alongside him, he'll play most of the games, should be on penalties, and he sort of underperformed his XG last season, which will probably balance out this season. I think he could be a good each way squeak at 25-1.
Do you like the sound of any of those, Dan?
I like the sound of Watkins each way because
I bet you do.
Villa are saying he's categorically not for sale. Obviously, if something stupid came in with an offer, he probably would be for sale. But Villa are going into the season knowing that he's going to be the number 9. He's going into the season knowing that he's going to be the number 9. And when he knows that, generally he thrives. And he's lucky double digits for goals, double digits for assists every single year for the last 3-4 years. I think Villa, with him leading the line, I'd quite fancy him each way.
Yeah, I'd love him. I think he's a great player. The other one, sort of slightly further down the list, is depending on where he ends up, or even if he stays at Brentford, Johan Visser at 33-1. With Mbuemo going, you really want a player like in the top goal scorer market who takes penalties, and I would imagine that Visser would now be on them now Mbuemo's gone if he stays at Brentford. I think he was really, really impressive. Like, that wasn't a lucky season last season. Like, his numbers completely stack up. If he stays at Brentford, they get a little bit of extra sort of creativity in, make a couple of more signings. I think he could be a really, really decent squeak at sort of 33-1.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about if I'd be taking that because I've got Brentford to go down. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about the price, I quite fancy, like, especially if he did get a move as well. Newcastle were interested. I think he'd be really. He'd have a really good chance.
Yeah. All right, Chris, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. That is Chris Wood from Ladbrokes. A look at the latest odds, of course, with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org, and we'll continue the Sesko chat.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our Odds Boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Yeah, just interesting, Dan Bardell alongside me here on the Transfer Insiders. Just interesting hearing the different prices that Sesko would have, whether he goes to Newcastle, whether he goes to Manchester United. What I found interesting about that is Manchester United last season struggled to create anything. One of their biggest problems last season was they couldn't create chances. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now they've brought in Cunha, they've brought in Mbuemo. Do you think that's why, if they were to bring in Sesko, there's better odds for him at Manchester United than there was for him at Newcastle just then?
I think it's just the nature of the market. If you were to look at the Premier League table off the bookmakers at the moment, I think Manchester United are in at 5th. Now, I currently don't see any way in which Manchester United are going to finish 5th. That's just my opinion. But the two players kind of all play at behind the striker. They will create more chances. But I wouldn't personally necessarily think that if Sesko goes to Manchester United, he'd score more goals than if he went to Newcastle. Isak's just scored, 27 last season. So I'm surprised by that. He's going to get a lot of chances if he goes to Newcastle. Newcastle have got some fantastic players.
Yeah, fair point. And we've had a few of you getting in touch, which is nice. Remember, 03717223344 or 81089. This one here from Tony, just talking about Darwin Núñez, saying 5 goals and 2 assists in 4 pre-season games. Decent numbers.
Pre-season means nothing.
You one of them?
Absolutely nothing. It's all about fitness.
You one of them?
All about fitness.
Yeah, I hear it. And this one here says Newcastle will pay him 60k a week. Manchester United will pay him 250k a week. There's utterly no chance that he's going to Newcastle.
He'll be getting a hell of a lot more than 60k a week at Newcastle. They might be paying less, but they pay more than 60k a week at Newcastle.
I mean, when you're dealing with a club like Newcastle, we don't stop hearing they're the richest club in the world, right? And I know we touched on it when we first came on air. Obviously, there's PSR and there's restrictions that are holding them back. But, they're the richest club in the world. Surely they can compete wages-wise with the likes of Manchester United.
But they can't because of the rules, the revenue. They don't get as much revenue in, so they can't pay the wages that Manchester United pay them.
Even over, sorry to jump in on you, maybe you can answer this. I've just been wondering. It's even because deals now are structured over 4 years, 5 years. Is that still the case then? Just in terms of PSR, if you structure it over 5 years, is it still difficult to make?
Yeah, they won't be able to get anywhere near what Manchester United pay. And straight away when Brian and Mbeumo could have picked a few different clubs to go to, I'm sure one of the reasons will be because he knows he's going to get paid more at Manchester United, because he's not going there to play Champions League at the current time, is it? Because they're not in it. It's to do with money, and Newcastle can't get near that at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. Where do you think he'll end up, though? Manchester United or Newcastle?
I've got a feeling he'll end up at neither.
Neither?
Yeah.
What, he's going to end up at Villa?
I think he could end up staying at Leipzig. It's happened before. I've just got a feeling it might not happen for either of them.
Yeah, all right. Right, let's get some team news then. As I said, Rangers are taking on Victoria Pilsen. David Tanner is there for us and give us the news. Evening, David.
Yeah, good evening. Furious Russell Martin left his players without a name after Rangers dropped 2 points in their league opener at Motherwell. He told them, and I quote, to drop their egos. Who was he talking about? He didn't say at the time, but we know now, as he's axed his captain James Tavernier and his vice-captain, Belgium international Nico Raskan. Joining them on the bench, big money signing Danilo and Kieran Dowell. 4 big earners, we can assume, being given a very public rebuke by the new manager. The replacements are winger Oliver Antman, who signed yesterday, Lyle Cameron, who starts for the first time since joining from Dundee. Jeff Day is in at left back as Max Aarons moves to right back to cover for Tavernier. Cyril Dessers comes in up top. John Suter wears the armband because, to recap on tonight's sensational news, James Tavernier and Nico Raskan among 4 big names dropped by Russell Martin. It's Rangers against Victoria Pilsen kick-off in just under 15 minutes' time.
Nice one, David. That's David Tanner there for us, and we'll keep you across that. Right, next up, we'll be joined by our transfer reporter, Ben Jacobs, to give us the latest transfer news today.
Shin pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch. His Nottingham Forest team then began wearing them from 1887, and the first known use of them in a match was in 1894, in a match between Newcastle and the then Woolwich Arsenal. Eventually, FIFA clocked on that this kind of protection was pretty important for footballers. And so, in 1990, basically 100 years after Widdowson first put them on, shin pads were made compulsory. It became part of Law 4 of IFAB. That's the body responsible for setting the laws of the game internationally. But the law doesn't actually specify anything about measurements of shin pads. It just says they must be made of a suitable material and be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection. It's really vague, even though there have been calls for it to be changed. But for now, that's why Grealish and co can still get away with these ones, which are no bigger than a credit card and which seem to offer little to no protection whatsoever.
The Transfer Insiders, Nick Bright and Dan Bardell, and it's time now to look at the latest football action with Ladbrokes.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our Odds Boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
And let's say evening to our reporter, Ben Jacobs. Man in the know, Ben. The man in the know. And you know what I'm going to ask you straight away? The latest on Alexander Isak. Come on, what's going on?
Yeah, I think the Isak situation is actually quite quiet. It would probably be better thinking about the Benjamin Sesko situation, because ultimately that is what might inform Alexander Isak. And naturally, if Sesko goes to Newcastle, then suddenly there might be a situation where Liverpool can move relatively quickly. If he goes to Manchester United, then Newcastle still need to find a replacement. So we need to be patient with the Alexander Isak saga. I think it will be that. I think Liverpool haven't walked away. But timing is everything. And if they bid now, it's going to be another rejection with probably no feedback. If Newcastle get in a replacement, maybe two, then suddenly the door is open. And still, Alexander Isak, who's returned to the Newcastle United training centre, is pushing for a move away. And Liverpool haven't given up hope. But timing is going to be everything.
Just in terms of this... Because it is a saga now, isn't it? And this is what happens with massive transfers normally. Newcastle could be in big trouble, because if this rumbles on, if this goes on and on and on, and let's say they miss out on Sesko and Isak says he doesn't want to play, they don't have an opportunity to... Well, either way, I think it's problematic, because if Isak goes late in the window, they don't have time to replace him. But if he doesn't want to play, they need to do something. I feel like whichever way Newcastle fans look at this, there's going to be problems for them this season in the forward position.
Yeah, I think Newcastle won't allow that. So the door is shut, which is why Newcastle have no inclination to engage with the Liverpool, and Liverpool are not currently planning a bid. That's as of now. And that's to protect Newcastle United Football Club until Benjamin Sesko gives an answer. Could be minutes, could be this evening, certainly no later than the next 24 hours. And then Newcastle have to get everything in order to either say to Isak, the door's shut, maybe even offer him a new deal, return with the possibility of an exit in a year's time, or get these replacements in. There will not be a scenario, in my opinion, where Newcastle are not in a position to sell Alexander Isak because they don't have replacements, and Liverpool succeed in buying Isak. The club-to-club negotiation will lead nowhere, and Liverpool know that, and again, that's why they're backing off. So that's the sort of backhanded good news for Newcastle, that scenario one, they get a box office replacement, maybe two. Johan Wissa, remember, is another name they like. And then they begrudgingly sell Isak, but they've got in replacements. Scenario number two is that they keep missing out in the market. Sesko goes to Man United. Then they have to determine if they want to move, for example, for a Nicholas Jackson and Ollie Watkins. Can they get Wissa over the line? I think there's confidence on the latter. And then suddenly they feel covered, and only then will they engage. So this is not in Liverpool's time scale at the moment. And I think if a situation arises where it drags on to the point where Newcastle lose confidence in finding a replacement, I think Liverpool will start to lose confidence that they can actually succeed in a bid for Alexander Isak. So at the moment, everything is taking place on Newcastle's terms.
Ben, Newcastle have obviously had a terrible summer, as you've just alluded to. They're missing out on so many players. And the last thing they'll want is another team kind of breathing down their necks, looking at Sesko as well. You'll be speaking to a ton of people at the moment around this deal. What would your inkling be about where he's going to end up? Do you know whether he's got a preference at this current time out of those two clubs?
I think we've always been told by sources, and actually more so on the Newcastle side, because Manchester United are a little bit coy because they understand the finances of this kind of deal. But generally speaking, the consensus is that if everything was even, the money to Leipzig plus the terms, that Benjamin Sesko is leaning towards Manchester United. But that's the sort of sensible nature of Newcastle's tactic, to bid first, to bid bigger than Manchester United, and to put a deadline on it. So as to say, we're not going to allow Manchester United time to level the playing field. Where Manchester United have responded, which is equally as smart, you could say, is in getting player buy-in, in getting the terms agreed with Sesko, and actually coming in higher than I think we anticipated, only 5 million below the total valuation of Newcastle's bid. So therefore, if they need to go up to equal the latest offer from Newcastle, they're probably prepared to do that. I don't think either club will go to 100 million. I think both clubs are content to get this done at 90, as long as the player says he wishes to join. So that means that as long as Manchester United are not at their top end offer, they are probably now quite confident, like Newcastle are, of agreeing a deal with Leipzig. And then it flips back to, where does the player want to go? We don't have a definitive answer yet communicated to both clubs, but the feeling remains that Benjamin Sesko has been delaying and has been waiting for Manchester United to formally enter the race. And right now, there is more confidence in the Manchester United camp on the player side. But remember, they've still got to agree that deal with Leipzig as well. Otherwise, Sesko might only have one club to choose from.
The amount of millions of people that are hanging on your every word here, Ben, to be fair, mate. You know, Manchester United, heavily supported club, of course. Newcastle, a heavily supported club. And then, you know, you've got Leipzig fans, of course, who want to know what's going on. But yeah, I'm sure you will keep us abreast what's happening there on talkSPORT. Right, let's talk your team, Dan, Villa, because there's a potential new forward on the way, I believe, Ben.
Yeah, there is one, and a very talented one too. Evan Gassand is on his way to Aston Villa. There's an agreement in principle, according to my information, already in place. The deal will be worth 30 million euros, around 5 million in add-ons. And Nice have already given him permission to travel and undergo a medical, and that's good news. You could obviously argue that this is effectively a John Duran replacement, even though Duran went to Saudi Arabia and now is at Fenerbahce. He's not so young that he's not ready for the Premier League, 24 years of age, and Ivory Coast international, although he spent his youth football playing for France. And what we've seen over the course of the last 12 months in particular is a bit of a breakthrough in terms of his scoring numbers, because if you actually look at where he was utilised in the early part of his career, pretty versatile, sometimes out wide, didn't always have a goal-scoring pedigree, except when he was playing for Nice's second team all the way back in 2019-2020. And then flash forwards to last season, and he got into double figures in Ligue 1, and that really alerted the market to him. He had a good loan spell a few years back with Lausanne as well in the Swiss Super League. And Villa think he's ready to challenge Ollie Watkins. So I don't think we should look at this as an attacker coming in, because he's not really in the Ollie Watkins mould. So this isn't necessarily a case of Watkins can now go to Man United or Newcastle, whichever club loses out on Benjamin Sesko. I think this is in addition to Watkins, and Villa's intent is still to keep their England striker if they possibly can.
Yeah, and I know Dan's going to want to talk more about this. We'll discuss it more, Dan, when we do our Aston Villa section in a bit, just because Ben's got to shoot in a sec, and I just want to squeeze one more in. Manchester City, a January signing on the way out on loan, I believe. So just tell us a little bit more about that, if you could.
Yeah, on loan, but not too far because it's within the City Football Group. Victor Reis, the defender, Brazilian, who was signed, as you say, relatively recently, will be on a season-long loan to Girona. The agreement in clubs is now in place. City using their multi-club network, a little bit like Chelsea have done, sending 3 of their players to Strasbourg. And the feeling is that this will give them the opportunity to be playing week in, week out, and then come back to Manchester City and start challenging for some first-team football. So Victor Reis has been given permission now to do all of the formalities, including the medical. And if all goes according to plan, he will spend the 2025-2026 season on loan with Girona.
All right, Ben, thank you very much for your time. As always, my friend, that is our reporter, Ben Jacobs. That is all thanks to Ladbrokes 18+, be gambleaware.org.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Supercharge your odds with our odds boost button. Selected markets applies to first £50 of stake. Terms apply. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Yeah, it is the Transfer Insiders then on talkSPORT. Nick Bright, Dan Bardell. Dan, you ready for a bit of rumour has it in a sec?
Very much so. Very much looking forward to it.
All right, that is all on the way shortly. Stay there. love these tunes. I love these tunes. Right, toe tappers, mate. Right, it is the Transfer Insiders, Dan Bardell alongside me, Nick Brighton. Make sure you don't miss Drive tomorrow afternoon from 4 with Natalie Sawyer and former Liverpool striker Gabby Aboglahor. So Gabby sat down with Crystal Palace midfielder Adam Wharton to discuss winning the FA Cup, how excited he is for European football at Selhurst Park, as well as looking ahead to the Community Shield against Liverpool. That's live on talkSPORT this weekend. And he was also asked about his aims for the upcoming campaign.
Our season last year was a bit stop-start with injury. So for Palace, I want to stay as fit as possible, play as many games as I can, because obviously we'll have a lot of games this year, hopefully. And yeah, just try and help the team as much as possible and do even better than we did last year. And then, yeah, I think every player that's English in the Premier League wants to, be picked to go to America from the end of the season. So, yeah, I don't really set too many goals personally. I just take it game by game, trying to improve. And, I can feel within myself if I'm doing well or I can be doing better. But, yeah, obviously, when the time comes, and, yeah, obviously you're hopeful that your name will be picked and you're on the plane.
Yeah, different gravy is Wharton. And remember, you can hear the full interview with Crystal Palace midfielder Adam Wharton tomorrow afternoon from 4 on Drive with Natalie Sawyer and Gabby Aboglahor. Right, now it is time for this. Rumour has it. This is our feature, Rumour Has It, where myself and Dan will be read out some transfer rumours. And Dan, we've got to decide whether we think they're good moves for the player and also for the club. So joining us now is assistant producer Luke. Hello, mate.
Hello, guys. How are you? You all right?
Yeah,
it's lovely in here, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's
nice.
Proper.
First time I've been in it. It's quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. This is a proper gaff, you know what I mean? I feel like I should have took my shoes off before I come in here.
Yeah, it's nice and carpet and everything.
Yeah, when it's fresh as well. Like, absolutely loving it. But you ready for, proper football to get back underway?
I can't wait. Bring on all the emotions, the nerves, the excitements, the roller coaster. Hopefully we can finally get over the line as an Arsenal fan trying to win the Premier League.
Don't listen.
No.
Yeah. I just wanted to read this out, actually, just before we get into Rumour Has It. We could be starting our own rumour here.
No. I know what's coming.
Dan's not having it. He's already said to me off air, no way. But it's from Martin, who's in Billericay, who says, I can't believe no one has suggested the obvious solution. Isak wants to join Liverpool and Newcastle need a replacement, so why not do a part exchange for Darwin Núñez? He's got loads to prove. What better incentive than outperforming Isak in the Newcastle team and at the same time trying to become another legend like Shearer? I mean, that's a massive shout. I mean, I can't imagine he'll be the next Shearer, but I mean...
Liverpool have done some exceptional business with outgoings over the years, but if they pulled that one off, then the miracle workers working behind the scenes
probably at least 70 million, wouldn't they, really, for that, I guess?
Newcastle fans would lose their mind as well, replacing arguably the best striker in Europe / the Premier League at the moment with Darwin Núñez.
Well, I mean, if you're a Newcastle fan and you're listening to this, what do you reckon? Would you have Darwin Núñez as a replacement? Because, look, at the end of the day, players always get what they want. No matter what happens, I think Alexander Isak is going to leave Newcastle, right? Would you take Darwin Núñez as a replacement? Because you're going to need one at 81089 03717 223344. Right, rumour has it then, Luke.
Well, let's start with Newcastle. And it wasn't Darwin Núñez that I had on my list. I had PSG's Gonzalo Ramos. He's another option should Alexander Isak go. With the Benjamin Sesko still not over the line, we still don't know what's going to happen. Could PSG's number 9 be the guy that takes them to lead the line next season? Champions League as well?
Do you want to go first or want me to go first, Dan?
I don't mind.
You go, because I've just read a whole thing, I want to hear from you.
I mean, I've heard worse rumours literally 10 seconds ago from Nick.
Pack it in, mate.
Over there.
It's not from me, it's from Martin in Billericay.
I feel like you were manifesting it. I feel like you wanted to be part of it. Play with Champions League experience, high-level experience. I imagine PSG would be pretty willing to let him go. He's a genuine number 9, a proper goal scorer. I don't think that would be the worst move in the world for either party, to be honest.
I feel like... Look, and I'm not a Newcastle supporter because Phil in Newcastle has just texted in no with about 100 exclamation marks to Darwin Núñez. But I look at it like, what makes him more appealing than a Darwin Núñez? What makes... Because I feel like when players play in leagues abroad, there's this kind of like magic allure. Do you know what I mean? Like, he could come from PSG. It'll be amazing. He's playing for PSG. But who's to say that he'll be able to do it in the Prem?
I think you say that with a lot of strikers, though. And until they wear the shirt and they understand what they're coming in for, he has had experience at PSG. You've seen the story and the rise of him from the Portugal, from Benfica. It might be for himself. He might be wanting to, wear the black and white shirt and be the main man. And I think when people know, especially with Newcastle, when you talk about Newcastle, you kind of know what you're coming in for. You're kind of coming in to be the guy to replace Alexander Isak. You're playing in front of St James's Park and that faithful, and you're playing in Champions League. It depends what your mentality is as a striker. Do you want to be that guy that wants to have all the pressure behind you, or maybe not?
So what are you saying, Dave? You think it'd be a good move for the player and for the club?
I don't think it would be the top suggestion you could come up with for Newcastle, but I don't think it's the worst suggestion in the world either.
Well, I'm going to go against you then, and I'll say nah. Even though I'm not a Newcastle supporter, there might be Newcastle fans listening to me right now saying, what does this Southerner know about Newcastle? What does he know? But I'm just going to say, nah, not for me. Get Núñez in there.
So you've got carried away with this.
Listen,
now.
I just don't think it's terrible, all right? I feel like people are going to... There's players who have played for clubs and it's not worked out, and then they've gone somewhere else and it's been amazing. Who's to say that can't happen? Is all I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm going to say. Because, look, we need options. We need options on the table, all right?
Well, let's talk about Manchester United, because they've always been talked about when we mention Newcastle and this unrunning saga. We had a conversation, didn't we, before we came off air, about their priorities, whether it's a striker, whether it should be a keeper, whether it should be a midfielder. But could Carlos Baleba from Brighton be the answer to their midfield problems? There's a rumour going around there. Do you think that could happen? Probably not this window, but could that be one in the potential future? And do you think he's the type of player that improves, obviously, Manchester United's midfield?
Are you a believer, Dan?
The Manchester United fans would love that. He's a top player for Brighton. He really, really is. But Manchester United at the moment, not struggling to get deals done because they have signed players, but we know that the financials of a lot of deals are tough for Manchester United to do at the moment. Getting into negotiations with Brighton.
Well, they want him. I think they're looking about 100 million when they've looked at prices, Caicedo prices, and I know they sold McAllister on the cheap, but they made money elsewhere. So Brighton won't be easy for Brighton.
Can I just say everyone's 100 million now, isn't they? Well, you notice that everyone. That's the going rate.
I'm 50. I'm 50 million.
That's how much they're paying you to be here tonight.
That's just how much I'm worth.
I can't
50
believe
million.
that.
Right. In the modern market, I reckon about 50 million now.
I'm going to say it'd be a good move for Manchester United. I'll just throw that out there now, because they need to sort out their midfield, and United fans will be the first to stick their hand up and say that they've really struggled creating chances last year. Lots of them have got a problem with Bruno. You've got Ugarte in there as well, but they need a third person. Yeah, I agree. Really. Right, let's squeeze in one more.
Well, we talk about midfielder, we talk about creating chances. I think Spurs need a midfielder with what's going on with James Maddison and his injury. And sorry to say this, Dan, but a certain Jack Grealish has been mentioned to Tottenham as the emergency number 10. Could that be a possible destination for him at the end of the window, or where do we think Grealish will be playing at?
Well, I know what Dan thinks.
Well, hold on,
because we had a little chat earlier on. I feel like you should go first.
I think he'd be a great move for him, Spurs, and I think it would be a great move for Tottenham as well. Obviously, nearly went there in 2018, I think it was, when Villa were in disarray in the Championship, but it didn't materialise, and he went on to achieve a lot at his boyhood club before becoming a £100 million player. The guy needs to go and play football somewhere. He needs regular rhythm. He's a player that thrives on playing week in, week out. Tottenham would be a brilliant move for him. Not sure Daniel Levy's going to entertain even paying a percentage of those wages he's on at Manchester City. I think it would definitely have to be a loan if it did happen. But I've been saying all winter, I've just got a sneaky suspicion we'll get to the last kind of week and I reckon Villa, Unai Emery, might enter the fray.
Just quickly though, with Spurs, do you not think there's more clamour because he can play in the 10 and he can play off the left? And with Son going, does that make it more of an appealing destination for him, or for Spurs to look at him and go, actually, he could probably play two positions? Yeah. And with the World Cup coming up as well,
he's got something to prove. Yeah,
he's got something to prove. Do you still think he could make it in the England team?
Tuchel name checked him, didn't he? He said if Jack Grealish was playing, he'd be in my squad. I love him as a player, and Tottenham would be a brilliant place for him to go and play football. He's got to go and play somewhere. He's too good a player, and the last 2 years have been an absolute nightmare for him. Yeah. Since Manchester City won the treble, he's just done nothing of note. I think he started 7 Premier League games last year, which is nowhere near enough. Get yourself out of Manchester City, go and play somewhere where you can be that free-flowing Jack Grealish again, because he's still got so much ability and so much to give.
Agree. Spurs fans, if you're listening to this right now, would you take Jack Grealish? I feel like that would be a good, just my opinion, I agree. I'd hate to see it happen because, being a Gooner, but I think it'd be a good move for Spurs and for the player. 03717223344 or 81089. Lukey, Buddy. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thanks,
Nice
mate.
one. That was Rumour Has It. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes 18+, begambleaware.org. Villa fans, though, get ready, because Dan Bardell is going to bring you the latest transfer news from Villa Park.
Wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing a really easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket back in the 1800s. Any bowler who managed to get 3 successive wickets used to be rewarded with a hat from their club. Next up, if you see a skillful tackle, an athletic save or a 40-yard screamer, you might say these things are out the top drawer. That's because back in Victorian times, if you had wealth, valuable stuff, you kept it in the top drawer of your dresser, so loaded families became known as top drawer. Remember the last time your team left you feeling as sick as a parrot? The image of the sick bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, but the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal, as we say in my country." Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
Yeah, welcome back then to the Transfer Insiders with myself, Nick Bright, Dan Bardell alongside me. And Dan, just before we get into your section, I'm calling it, because you've been champing at the bit waiting to talk about Aston Villa, of course, and we just heard a little bit of news in the news there. We'll get into that in more detail shortly. I just wanted to read out some of the messages that have been coming in, and it seems that a lot of Newcastle fans are listening. That's what we like. But it's not just Newcastle fans that are commenting on what we were just discussing. Jordan, who's a Manchester City fan, says if Isak went to Liverpool, getting Núñez and Cash would be a good deal. He's Captain Chaos, and the Geordies would absolutely love him. Dan's less sure about that, I think.
I mean, a Manchester City fan would love a team that's in and around them, or was in and around them last season, to sign Darwin Núñez. It just doesn't make any sense that Newcastle do that.
Hello to Karim, who's in York, who says, I'm a Liverpool supporter. I've always liked Darwin. I've been saying for ages that both players and both clubs would make massive sense for a deal to bring Isak in, with Núñez going the other way with a cash adjustment. So, yeah, listen, it's gaining a bit of traction, this. You know, it was Martin in Billericay, by the way. I feel like I've just become Martin's official spokesperson.
I feel like you and Martin are on Darwin Núñez's agency or something. There's something funny going on.
Do you think maybe Martin is me? Do you think
could be? I've not ruled it out.
Right.
I've got no evidence of it right now, but I wouldn't rule it out.
All right. Well, let's talk about your club, Villa, then, because they're closing in on signing Nice forward Ivan Gusand. talkSPORT understands they're set to pay £30.5 million. You got a signing on the way, Dan. We should have a jingle for that of
Honestly,
some kind.
I didn't think I'd ever see the day in this transfer window.
We were just talking in the green room before we came into the studio, and you know, obviously we try to stay abreast of the transfers as best we can at talkSPORT. And one of the things I said to you was, what have Villa done this window? I was like, have I missed stuff? But it's been incredibly quiet for you guys.
Yeah, look, you can attest that I've never panicked by it. I understood the situation that the club are in, where they've got to be careful. I'm actually surprised that they're looking like they're going to go out and spend that kind of money without anyone leaving, and I'm really pleased to hear that as well. I think it's a position that Villa needed to strengthen in. We heard Ben Jacobs talking earlier. Gasson isn't going to come in and replace Ollie Watkins, but he's a player that can play there if Villa need him to. But he's also become an option wide right, which has been a problem position for Villa over the last couple of years. And we've seen with Unai Emery that he loves a multifunctional attacker. We've seen Morgan Rogers playing lots of different positions, John McGinn playing in different positions. You know, the fact that if you can play in a couple of positions, it really helps you with squad building, especially in a difficult summer like the one Villa are having right now. This is an exciting player. This is a player that got 20 goal contributions in League One last season. He's very direct. He's built like a centre-forward because he's 6 foot plus, but he isn't a centre-forward. He does his best work out wide on the right. That's where he played last season. And I just like the look of him. He's direct, a great ball carrier, works really hard as well, actually gets stuck in from a defensive perspective as well if you look at his metrics. So this is one that's taken me by surprise today. but it's a pleasant surprise, and I'm sure the Villa fans are buzzing and hope that this gets done as well.
It's in this day and age as well, where kind of every transfer is, every stage of every transfer is reported on and dissected. It's just interesting that this is one of those ones that's like caught you out. You didn't see it coming.
Villa are the hardest club in the country to get anything out of.
Really?
They keep things very, very tight. Aston Villa, Tommy Jordan in the communications department, he doesn't let much slip, doesn't let much out. So yeah, this is what Villa do.
Come on, Tommy. Dan's here. Just get him on speed dial when you got deals like this. You know what I mean? We need to know. But it's funny because we were just having a discussion, again, before we came on air, about that succession plan for Ollie Watkins. And I know I'm not saying Gasson is going to be that guy, but you said he can play there because as things stand at the moment, it's Watkins or no one for Villa.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm happy with that. They've got Daniel Marlon as well, who came in,
who can play
in January, who can play there as well. I think that's the best thing to do. It's affected Watkins when there has been direct competition for his position last season. I think that was one of the reasons why his numbers were slightly down, because at the start of the season he had John Duran breathing down his neck. John Duran obviously scored a lot of goals in that first part of the season before he ended up departing. And then towards the back end of the season, before he got injured, Marcus Rashford felt like he was Unai Emery's first choice in that position. But if you rewind to the season before, when Watkins knew he was going to play every single week, his numbers were sensational.
Yeah.
And when you're going Thursday to Sunday, Europa League, Premier League, I don't think there's a better striker to have than Ollie Watkins, because he's so durable, he's so reliable, and he's got a spring in his step this pre-season. He didn't really have a pre-season last time round after the Euros, and he had a knock. This time, he's looked incredibly sharp. He suddenly started to score a load of headers in pre-season as well. And if you're adding another exciting attacking player into the mix who can replace him if needs be, but also play with him, I think that's smart squad building from Villa.
Yeah. Well, just in terms of squad building then, I guess there's two. This is kind of like a double-edged question, because I could ask you, what do Villa need to do this summer? But I guess you can also ask, what can Villa do this summer? Because there are PSR restrictions, right? So, yeah, what do you think Villa need to, in an ideal scenario? Let's just take PSR away for a minute.
I wish we could.
Yeah, I know, right? But what would you like to see Villa do? Let's say PSR wasn't an issue. I mean, within reason. Let's not say something silly. But what would you like to see Villa do?
To be honest, they're starting to do it if they get Gasson in. Sorry, I'm struggling with the French accent here, with my Brummie accent. They're well on the way to doing what I think that they need to do, because Villa were toiling in the first half of the season. They went really well in the Champions League, but there was an argument that what they were doing in the Champions League was affecting the league form, and the squad wasn't big enough. I think Villa won 6 of their first 23 games, lots of draws, dropping silly points that they wouldn't have dropped the season before. But then in January, what happened was they used the loan market really, really well. They sold John Duran, got in Dizazi, got in Rashford, and got in Asensio. Rashford and Asensio raised standards in that squad, and I think they almost revitalised Unai Emery a bit in that second part of the season, and we went on an incredible run, and really we probably should have got top 5 and got into the Champions League, but we learned how to fight on multiple fronts, and we were competing well in the FA Cup, the Champions League and the Premier League. We didn't come out of it with anything, but we had a good season like last season. Rashford and Asensio aren't there anymore. Their input needs replacing, so Gasson is halfway to doing that. I've said it earlier on in the show. If we're getting to the end of that window, and we've got to be clever and we've got to be coy, and we can't be splashing big transfer fees, if Grealish hasn't gone, Villa could offer to pay 50% of his wages and not pay a transfer fee, have him for a season. I think that's doable. He's a homegrown player to add to the Europa squad as well. That's what I'd like to see, because that really is replacing Asensio and Rashford with quality.
I want to know what Villa fans think of that. Because
it'll be 50-50.
Yeah, he's divided opinion, it's fair to say. So if you are a Villa fan and you're listening to this right now, do you agree with Dan Bardell? Do you think Jack Grealish would be a good shout to come in if it gets close to the end of the window? Right, PSR rules, though, we just mentioned it. They've become a bit of a problem for Aston Villa. And even midfielder John McGinn has had his say. Let's have a listen.
Don't have to be stupid to realise that if we want to try and compete with the big boys, the rules, which are pretty much unfair. If you ask me, we've got owners who want to invest in the team and spend and kick the club on, and they're not allowed to do it. So it's kind of tough to see, but the rules are similar for a lot of the clubs, and a lot different for others. But anyway, we can go into that.
Yeah, John McGinn there. He's clearly not happy about the PSR restrictions. I mean, what do you make of his comments, Dan? And what do you make of kind of PSR on the whole and what's happening at Villa at the moment?
I quite liked it at the end when he suddenly realised he was being too honest, and and he almost tried to backtrack there. John McGinn, look, he's a tremendous character, John McGinn, and I think he echoes the feelings of the club, and I think he echoes the feelings of the Villa fan base as well. I said earlier on in the show that Villa have owners that want to inject more cash, but they're not allowed to do it. Now, if we went back to when Chelsea and Manchester City were taken over, if you'd have told their owners they couldn't inject the cash that they wanted to, they wouldn't be what they are today. So I think that's the sense of why Villa and Newcastle probably, and I think Forest will get the same at some point. They feel these rules are really, really unfair. We have fit and proper owner tests that have had mixed results over the years in football. I just think if an owner can prove that they've got the money and they want to invest their own money, and okay, it comes outside of the club's finances, why is that not something that's okay? If you own something, why can't you spend what you want to spend? If you're proving that you've got that money and you're not going to put the club in any trouble, Villa should be able to spend what they want, because I don't remember it being much better than this in my life, being a Villa fan with the manager that we have, the group of players that we have. And we haven't won anything, but I've seen stuff over the last few years that was a dream before Unai Emery came in, seeing Villa in the Champions League. And we want that to be the everyday. We want that to be the norm. But it's so hard. It's almost a miracle that Unai Emery got us in the Champions League in the first place. I don't think he gets the credit for the job he's done and for that achievement, and we were a good addition last season. But it feels like the rules make it harder and harder for us to make that a regular occurrence, and that's what we all want, and that can't be right, in my opinion.
And just to round up, just to finish, what can Villa do this season? What's a successful season for Villa for you?
For me, if we're in and around the top six, and we can win a trophy that we all want, because we haven't won anything since 1996, and that trophy is the Europa League, you're killing two birds with one stone, because you're winning that trophy and you're back in the Champions League. And we've got the best manager to do that. Unai Emery is a Europa League expert. I think he's won it 4 times. That's got to be the ambition this season.
He's only lost the Europa League final once, and I won't say which team he was managing at the time, but I'm sure everybody can probably work it out. Right, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org, and next we'll turn our attention to Everton and their transfer business, including a certain Jack Grealish. Welcome back then to the Transfer Insiders with myself, Nick Bright, Dan Bardell alongside me. We are going to talk Everton in a sec, but Rangers are taking on Victoria Pilsen. David Tanner is there for us. What's the latest, David?
34 minutes gone now. It's Rangers 1, Victoria Pilsen 0. That Jiri Kisama goal on 15 minutes separating the side still. Rangers could have been 2-0 up when Kisama set up another opportunity. It was an effort that was swept across goal, and then there was a low drive by Oliver Antman making his Rangers debut after signing yesterday, and it was cleared off the line, a real let-off for the Czech side. But it's still Rangers 1, Victoria Pilsen 0.
Thank you very much, David. David Tanner there keeping us across that one, and we will get the updates to you as they happen. Right, let's talk Everton now then, and welcome James Pendleton from the Toffee Blues podcast. Evening, James.
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. How are you feeling, mate? The after I'm guessing you've got another game to go, but you know the America tour's done.
Yeah, the America tour's done. Yeah, played 3 games out there. Then we got a game on Saturday against Roma, which is the sort of first kind of proper game at Hill Dickinson Stadium. Not the first competitive match, obviously, but that's going to be good. So looking forward to that. But yeah, we played I think 5 games so far. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk Tyler Dibbling then. It's hit the buffers. What's the situation?
Yeah, I think it was reported today that they've actually made a bit of a counter offer, I think it was being called, where they're looking for £50 million, upwards of 50 million, including, I think it was described as easily achievable add-ons, plus a 25% sell-on clause. I don't know whether that's 25% of profit, 25% over a certain figure, a flat 25%, I'm not sure. But yeah, the deal's really changed over the last couple of days. It looked like it might have been sort of mid to high 30s, and now you're talking £50 million and a big sell-on clause. So yeah, things seem to be moving a little bit slower than they have done the last couple of days.
Do you think that's too much? Would that price point worry you slightly?
Yeah, I think 50 million without a sell-on clause is certainly kind of the utmost of what I'd go to. I wouldn't go any higher than that. And I think when you bring in a huge sell-on clause like that, it makes that this goes from a deal which is, you know, a good player, good young player who within 2 years can be 2-3 years can be double that value. The risk is hugely kind of almost sort of doubled, if you like, I think, because now you're talking Everton have to sell him for a huge amount of money. They'd have to give Southampton a lot of money. They've already put a lot of money into it. It's like when we signed Richarlison for sort of £50 million at the time, but then he went for 60 million, so he cost Everton a lot of money, and then he went for not too much more. So yeah, I think 50 million is sort of the very most I'd go.
We'll talk Dewsbury Hall in just a sec, but I just wanted to ask you, James, just about how Toffees fans are feeling going into this new season, because obviously you've left Goodison Park behind, going into that new stadium, which is fantastic, by the way. But you know, I was having a look online, and it feels to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of Everton fans they're not feeling the most optimistic. And when you're going into that brand new stadium, you know, I expected the feeling to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's changed slightly the last couple of days, because now obviously you mentioned Dewsbury Hall there. He's going to add real quality into midfield, which we desperately need, I think, because we've all sort of looked at it and said, well, we need a whole new right side, you need a new right back, need a new right winger. You know, I don't care where they come from, we kind of just need to add numbers into the squad. But Kieran Dewsbury Hall is going to be a good addition, I think. And Tyler Dibbling is a player who I didn't think would be anywhere near. I thought teams better than Everton, certainly better placed than Everton, would be looking at him rather than us, certainly not this summer anyway. You know, he's the kind of player who, if he came onto the scene a year or two later, we'd hope to be in a better position. So I was actually really surprised when I saw the link come out, and then very quickly, you know, it ignites, and it looks like it's a kind of a real serious proposition. So I do think the optimism's actually gone up the last sort of 48 hours, but no one's kidded on anything yet. You know, Dewsbury Hall actually isn't official as of right now, so we need to get him in, and then 2, 3, 4 more players. So I think optimism is creeping up slightly, but yeah, it definitely isn't kind of where I'd like it to be at this stage. But again, we always knew this was going to be a tough window, not as tough as previous years, but we're still not kind of fully off the lurch just yet.
Yeah, I want to get you excited, because I think it's tough for different reasons. Everton have been through the mire over the last few years, had some really turbulent times at that club, and David Moyes has come back in, stabilised you, went on a fantastic run in the second half of last season. You're obviously moving into an unbelievable new stadium now. It is the dawn of a new era for Everton, and I don't think Everton are the only club that have had a difficult summer. I think outside of the top three, I'd argue, and probably on Chelsea, who can just buy who they want. I think every other club has had their struggles. I think if you start the season with what you've got, yes, you're short, you'd still be okay because you've got David Moyes and he's a fantastic manager and he just suits your club down to the ground. But I would say that by the end of August, you will have the squad that David Moyes wants. And I think you're looking up and looking at having a top half season and really going from there for Everton. You're an unbelievable club, and I actually think this is a really exciting time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a difficult window for a lot of teams, like you mentioned. I think Newcastle are kind of not like a laughing stock, but I think everyone they kind of seems to get linked with is going elsewhere. They could lose their best player as well, which would be, absolutely huge for them. I think Tottenham are still struggling a little bit. They're going to need some additions. Brentford have been pulled apart. West Ham are struggling. It's not an easy window, as you mentioned, and I think teams like Spurs and West Ham are, I think, a better place than Everton, both geographically, financially. They've also got newish stadiums still, all that. They're struggling to pull in players. Newcastle, again, Champions League football, it's not kind of the key to success maybe it was 15 years ago. So it's not a surprise to see that. But as good as I think David Moyes is, and as kind of highly as I rate him, I do feel like he's going to need 3 or 4 more additions at the very least, because he can do well and he can turn water into wine to a certain extent. But I think at some point you're going to need some help and he's going to need extra players to come in the door, because knowing Everton's looks, players are going to get injured. If we don't start off well on the new ground, then again there could be some issues there. So yeah, while I don't think many fans are fearing for Everton this season, it could change very quickly. So definitely need to try and get some players in.
The two of you seem to just be getting on a little too well for my liking. And the reason I say that is because you're allegedly interested, Everton, in Manchester City's Jack Grealish. And the man to the left of me here was just saying a few moments ago, James, don't know if you heard it or not, but he was just saying that he wants his club, Villa, to go in for Jack Grealish. So, firstly, Jack Grealish to Everton. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's an interesting one. That's been again kind of ignited again today. That went dead a little bit over the last week or so. I heard Tottenham were interested as well, so I kind of let that one go by a little bit. But yeah, as you say, today it's kind of rekindled a little bit. It's interesting because when Iliman Ndiaye played on the left, that's where I think Jack Grealish would play. If not there, when he plays century, then you're getting Keenan Dewsbury Hall. You've already got Charlie Alcaraz, so I'd be surprised if Everton went and did it, because I think their positions of relative strength, are hardly stacked of talent in those positions. But I don't think that's a position we're absolutely massively in need of, and he's on absolutely huge wages. I don't know what the situation is at Villa, whether bridges have been burnt there or not, I'm unsure. But I think if Everton were to get him, it'd have to be a really, really favourable deal. He's a great player when he's on form and huge talent to be unlocked there, and he is only 29. It's not like we're talking mid-30s. He's not like a washed-up, has-been football. I think he's still got a good couple of years left at the top level. So if that were to happen, it would certainly be exciting, but I don't think it's the most pressing kind of area of need for the team.
I mean, the two clubs have got a relatively decent relationship, Manchester City and Everton. There's fans, there's players that have, gone either way between the two. Just on the relationship with Villa, though, I should say George has messaged in, just saying Jack is a traitor. I would never accept him back. But does finish the message with an all caps up the Villa.
That's all right then. As long as we've had the all caps at the end, that's okay.
Yeah, there you go. James, just before we let you go, this season then, I'm not asking you to give a prediction, but where are you hoping for Everton to be? What's kind of, what yourself and your mates that you speak to, what are you targeting? What do you want?
I think just like a season when we're not worrying. I think each of the last, might be 4 seasons now. They kind of all blend into one a little bit, but you sat there thinking, let's just have no issue where you get to like December, January time and you're not bothered about watching it. You're turning it off early. You can see it and it's over. That's what it was like last season. And then obviously Moyes came in and we were kind of back again for a couple of months, which was obviously really nice. I want to just keep looking forward and just hope that at no point this season you're getting a sweat on worrying about who's below you. I'm not having to watch like Sunderland's games and thinking, oh God, they've won again, or they're getting points, they're clawing us back in anything like that. Teams who are hopefully going to be below us can stay there and we can just look up towards that 10th to 12th kind of range. That would be fine. And obviously we can start to focus on maybe trying to win a cup for a change. It's been so long now. So I think it's about just staying as far away from the bottom 3 as possible and just having a nice season in the new stadium. Hopefully having some good moments, and then it's from next season and onwards we can start to plan again for doing something proper.
Okay, James, thank you very much,
Cheers,
mate. That is James Pendleton from the Toffee Blues podcast. Right, there's a penalty, Rangers against Victoria Pilsen. David Tanner.
43 minutes on the clock at Ibrox. It's Rangers 1, Victoria Pilsen 0. Rangers have a penalty kick. It was a tremendous break, just as the game looked really one-paced. Oliver Atman, one possession, went flying into the Czechs' half of the pitch. He picked out J.D. Gassama, the goal scorer, who immediately returned it to him, and Antman, who signed only yesterday, flew into the box, and he was hauled down unceremoniously by Matic Vidra, the captain of Victoria Pilsen. And the referee, Clement Turpin, the well-known French referee, pointed to the spot. There is going to be a bit of a delay because the goalkeeper isn't even in the penalty box, but Cyril Dessers is one of 4 players who was brought into the team tonight after Russell Martin wielded the axe, dropping captain James Tavernier, vice-captain Nicholas Raskan, and forwards Danilo and Kieran Dow. Dessers is the man going to be taking the penalty kick. The goalkeeper has now finished his little act, his time wasting. Florian Weigl is now in his goal, and Cyril Dessers steps back and has the opportunity to push Rangers 2 in front. Meanwhile, there's some wrestling going on at the edge of the penalty box here. Mohamed Diamande involved there. Gassama, who got the goal after 50 minutes, involved there as well. We're more or less on the half-time whistle now. Here comes, in the absence of James Tavernier, who's on the bench, a penalty kick taken by Cyril Dessers. The goalkeeper has been told off by the referee again. There goes the whistle, and here comes Cyril Dessers, right-footed. Scores! Cyril Dessers from the penalty spot makes it Rangers 2, Victoria Pilsen 0.
David, thank you very much. David Tanner there. Loads of shenanigans going on by the sounds of it there, Dan.
Don't you think, though, there's like no more satisfying sound than when you're listening to the radio and you hear a goal going and the crowd roars? It's such a satisfying noise.
Well, especially if you're a Rangers supporter.
Oh, yeah, even better if you're a Rangers fan. But I just enjoy it generally.
Yeah, true. Unless it's against the mighty Villa, I'm guessing.
Then, obviously.
Then less so. Right, anyway, you're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes, 18+, begambleaware.org.
Shin pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch.
It is the Transfer Insiders here on talkSPORT. They're Nick Bryant and Dan Bardell alongside me, and we're going to discuss Liverpool now and whether, Dan, it's their title to lose, because let's be honest, looking at it, just based on the business that they've done, based on the team that they had last season, I make them favourites. I'm not going to say by a long way, but, I definitely make them favourites to retain the Premier League title, which they've never done before. It would be an amazing feat for them to do it, but it's not easy. But as things stand, I make them favourites.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We were talking earlier, and I think Arsenal have had a really good window. I think they've strengthened positions that need strengthening. They look pretty well set through the board, I would say. But the issue is, Liverpool have just almost gone the extra mile. It must be so frustrating for you.
Mate,
their squad is sensational.
It's been, like, you've hit the nail on the head. As an Arsenal supporter, this is the window that we've wanted for a long time. 6 players in, potentially more. One of those players, the number 9 that we've wanted so desperately for so long, one of the most sought-after players in Europe. We've got it all done, but then you look up the M1 and the M6, and Liverpool are doing their thing, and they're not finished yet. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of people discussing online is this reactionary way of being that we have now. Rather than concentrating on just our own football teams, we look at those teams around us, our rivals, I guess, and see what they're doing. And if they're having a really great window, it makes you think, well, we've got to do more. And as things stand at the moment, because of the window that Liverpool are having, myself and a lot of other Arsenal supporters, we think Arsenal need to do more. And that sounds insane.
Other than the left-hand side, I'm not really sure what more Arsenal could have done or could do this window, really. Obviously, there's still the links with Eze. If he comes in, that's a great addition, a player who can play in a couple of positions. I would say if Arsenal fans are looking to put him on the left-hand side, I'm not sure that works without a marauding left back, which you don't have really in the building at Arsenal. Lots of fullbacks, lots of good players, but no one that really does that job. Yeah. I look at Liverpool, and in every area now, it kind of feels like they've got 2 players and 2 good players. We're talking about people like Shobbers, like Curtis Jones. They're not in Liverpool's best 11 as it stands, and if they sign Isak as well, wow, is that the best window ever? Possibly.
I mean, definitely, I would say, because, obviously there's probably people listening to this from various different ages, different eras, but just in my lifetime, in my football watching lifetime, I would have to say yes.
Their team's going to be frightening.
Just a bit. And, we're coming at this from, because I'm an Arsenal supporter, we're coming at this from an Arsenal perspective, but even from, a Manchester City perspective, they've done some business this window. We're having a little chat before we came on air. You were saying that you don't expect them to overtake Arsenal this season, but they're trying to get back to where they were, Manchester City, and it's probably a dagger through the heart for them as well. The business that Liverpool are doing for everybody.
Yeah, because they've lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was a big player. Frimpong's a very different type of player, but he's an excellent fullback. Plus, they've still got Conor Bradley as well. Even if you look at the basics of goalkeeping, they've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world as a number 2 now. Like, just position after position for Liverpool, it's just strong. And I just look at how they're going to play, how they played last season. Even in games they didn't play well, they just drilled out the result. They did what they needed to do. They're tailed off at the end because they'd won the league.
Yeah, it was done.
An absolute canter. But, Ekitike coming in and might not even be in their best 11. You said earlier, and I thought this was a really good point, we were all kind of talking about them just when they'd signed Wirtz.
Yeah.
They've gone on and done 4 or 5 others. Could be about to sign one of the best strikers in Europe, probably the best striker in the Premier League. Where does it end?
I mean, just looking at it, and look, you know, the season hasn't started yet, so let's just remember that, you know, a ball has not been kicked yet, and anything can happen in football. We all know these things, but just looking at it, based on how strong they were last season and the players that they've added to that squad this season, unless for whatever reason they don't gel or they just go for a really rough patch of form, I just can't see them doing worse than last season, and they blew everyone out the water last year. So, you know, I just see a rinse and repeat happening. Just in terms of with Isak or without Isak, is it still the same outcome for you, Liverpool champions?
I think so. I think Arsenal will be. I'm really impressed with what Arsenal have done this summer. I think Gyökeres is almost the final piece in the jigsaw. For me, if I look at teams on paper, Arsenal have got the best centre-back pairing. They've got a fantastic goalkeeper. Midfield is strong. Zubimendi will add a different dimension to what Arsenal do. I think he's got line breaking passes. He'll control the tempo. He'll take the leash off Declan Rice a little bit as well. I think Declan Rice for Arsenal is better when he's unable to go further forward and drive with that ball. You've obviously got Saka, who, for me, is one of the best players in the world, severely underrated in most quarters, doesn't get spoken about enough, a player that's really carried Arsenal on his back in some ways, a fantastic leader as well, and a player that's come through the academy and gets the club. I think centre-forward-wise, obviously Arsenal were linked with a host of different centre-forwards. For me, out of all the strikers that are available this summer, at the price point he was at as well, I just think Gyökeres is a different beast. I think he's going to suit the Premier League and Arsenal down to the ground. This is a guy who could finish off both feet. He drives with the ball. He'll sniff goals out. He'll make chances for himself as well. I think, you know, Arsenal fans in that first game of the season are just going to be buzzing at having a genuine centre forward. And, you know, Havertz is a really good player.
Yeah,
they've got him to come back into the fold as well. So I don't think Liverpool are going to absolutely blow past Arsenal, but at the moment I would still make them favourites even without Isak.
Yeah, I'd reluctantly have to agree with what you're saying there. Just, you know, if they can pick up where they left off last season, everybody's in for a rough ride, that's for sure. But yesterday we saw Liverpool's attackers, Hugo Ekitike, as well as youngster Rio Gamoa against Athletic Bilbao. So let's hear manager Arne Slot's thoughts on both.
We've added with Hugo definitely a player that's going to be a very good player for us. Rio is showing good things every time in pre-season. So the other games in pre-season, I think we've conceded a few chances too much. Today we hardly conceded anything at all, so that pleased me as well. But then to concede, especially in the second game, 2 set-piece goals, that is, that's not what you want, especially not if you play Crystal Palace next week.
I mean, it's a fantastic time to be Arne Slot. I think it's fair enough. Not only are we waxing lyrical about the business that he's already done, potential of Alexander Isak coming in, we've also got Rio Gamoa, who a youngster who they got from Chelsea, who in pre-season has been amazing.
I mean, Arsenal got a 15-year-old coming through, haven't I?
Max Dowman. I mean, yeah, look, I don't want to go on too much about Arsenal and Max Dowman, but remember the name is all I will say.
This kid's 16, so he's past it, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
past his prime.
Yeah. I mean, just what the rest of the league didn't need was Liverpool adding another new option from nowhere, almost from the under-21s, from the academy. And if he can facilitate what they've already got as well, and Liverpool are really good at kind of managing young players and integrating them into the team, it looks like another fantastic option. Young players, you know, just seem to be fearless nowadays. Kids that, you know, should be taking their GCSEs or a year away from taking their GCSEs, they just come into that environment, a men's environment, and just look fearless. I just can't get my head around it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see what these players are doing. Like you say, when I was 15, I mean, I don't even want to say what I was doing. This is national radio at the end of the day, but I definitely
tell me in the break.
Doing that. Yeah, I'll tell you in the break. But just before that, Liverpool's Harvey Elliott gave his thoughts post-match about his future.
I don't really want to be wasting years of my career because it's a short career. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, touch wood it don't, but like injuries and things, and you know, it could shorten it. So I think it's a situation that, as I've said before, I need to reflect. I need to see if, you know, I'm content in doing what I'm doing and how can I improve, you know, as a player, because that's the most important thing. That's the main thing, really. I just want to improve and be the best possible version of myself, and the best player I can be. And if that's to go somewhere else, then it's a decision that I'm going to have to make.
It's pretty honest, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's a good interview.
Yeah, just in terms of, what he's saying there. But it's true. If he's not going to get those opportunities at Liverpool and they're bringing through these fantastic players that they are, he needs to go somewhere else because he's quality.
Yeah, up in the Euro, the under-21 Euros, what a brilliant watch he was. I like how he speaks. He's really matured into a fine young man, Harvey Elliott, and he's a really good footballer as well. Just, again, didn't get anywhere near enough football last season for Liverpool, but you can understand why. And, we're talking about how they've strengthened already. The pathway now is even more difficult than it was last season. I think he's got Tottenham written all over him, I do. They were obviously going to sign Morgan Gibbs-White, so there was money there for that type of player, a number 10. Maddison's now broken down as well and looks like he's going to be out for a while. I think he's a London boy as well, Harvey Elliott. Possibly I might be wrong there. That might be an assumption of mine that's wrong, but I just think that is a move that makes complete sense.
Yeah, I mean, Tottenham fans, what do you think of that one as well? We're throwing a few at you this evening, Tottenham fans.
We're just making things up.
Yeah, why not? Everybody else does. 03717 223344 81089 if you want to get involved. You're listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes 18+. BeGambleAware.org. This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT. My name is Nick Bright, alongside me, Dan Bardell. So after 9, we're going to have a little bit of a Euro roundup. But just before that, get this. Andy Galeforce Goldstein failed yet again. It's getting pitiful now, Andy, I tell you. In his attempt to win a game at a pro 9-ball pool tournament today, when he got embarrassed by all-time great Earl the Pearl Strickland, 9-1 defeat. At least he got one on the board, but 9-1, that's pretty shocking. But Andy, if at first you don't succeed, try again, because he's back tomorrow for his second game. If you fancy seeing him fail again, just head over to the talkSPORT YouTube channel tomorrow from 4 p.m. or tune in to the Drive Show for updates. I mean, that's definitely worth watching, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because I think Galeforce, he would definitely win if it was a talking tournament or a tournament in, giving it the big one. So if you want to see him lose at 9-ball pool, talkSPORT YouTube channel, 4 p.m. tomorrow. You going to be there, Dan?
I might have a little gander. To be fair, I'll give him credit for Keith coming back. Resilience. It's a show of resilience. If you keep going, you will win eventually.
I mean, I can't say 9-1's pretty, but
it's tough.
9-ball pool, any good?
Mate, I'm not good at any sport. I can just about talk about football, but playing it, I'm rubbish.
Well, there's not a single sport you say I'm all right at.
Badminton, table tennis. I'll tell you on holiday, good at volleyball.
These are rogue sports.
Good volleyball.
These are rogue sports you're coming out with here. Badminton.
Yeah, I'm half decent.
Badminton.
Mate, if you'd have seen me on holiday at volleyball, though, I think you'd have been impressed.
What, beach volleyball?
Well, in the pool.
Right, okay.
Pool volleyball. I don't know what you call it, but
just water polo, isn't it? What is it in the pool?
Water polo is where you're throwing it into a goal.
There isn't. Is there
a different thing?
There's not a professional volleyball tournament that happens in a swimming pool, is there? I don't think there is. There's regular volleyball and then there's beach volleyball. There's no swimming pool.
Everywhere I've gone on holiday, that's a game that gets played.
Yeah, whilst you're drinking pina coladas in your all-inclusive.
I'm professional, mate. I wasn't having any of that. I had a volleyball game to play at 3 o'clock every day.
Me, I'd go for a bit of Bardell.
I really want to get into paddle.
Hey, listen, you want to speak to Benty? He's all over it.
You look like a paddle player. You look like you'd be good at paddle.
I love it. It's very there's a court round the corner from talkSPORT Towers in a very impressive London archway. Is
that the one Simon Jordan beat Gabby and Darren Bent?
I mean, probably
the one. Yeah,
probably rented out the whole place knowing those guys. Right. Anyway, we digress. Let's. We were just talking about Liverpool and how we think we're both in agreement on this. They're favourites to win the Premier League title. I think most people would agree. But what do Arsenal need to do to catch up? Because in your eyes, Dan, and I'm trying to be impartial here because everybody knows I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm trying to say what you said, which is you still believe Arsenal are second best in the Premier League, right? So in your opinion, what do you think Arsenal need to do to close that gap?
It's a big question, isn't it? There's not much wrong with Arsenal. I just think what Liverpool are doing looks to me absolutely exceptional. We haven't really seen a Liverpool like this ever in terms of being so aggressive in the transfer market. They've spent money before, but it tends to be on just kind of one player. There was a summer when they got Alisson in. I think the January before that they got Van Dijk in, and they've been very clever in the market over the years. But this is aggressive, what they're doing now. This is spending big money on big players that are going to come in, and what was already a brilliant team is going to be made even better. For Arsenal, it's kind of been a case of maybe doing little bits every year. And in fairness to us, it wasn't that long ago they were struggling to get in the top 4 and get into the Champions League, and they've had good goes at winning the title. I think people will take the mick, but getting to the semi-finals of the Champions League, that's progress. Yeah. Arsenal had a good campaign in the Champions League last time round, and will have taken stuff away from that. But I look at them and think, really, if you were given 100 million now, let's say, that you could just spend, probably on the left wing, you'd probably look, I'm assuming. But I'm going through the rest of that Arsenal 11 and thinking, can they really improve on that? I'm not sure they can.
Something you said a little bit earlier on when we were discussing Liverpool just sticks in my mind. And you were saying with Liverpool, it feels like pretty much in every position they got 2 players who can step in and do a job. So if Arsenal really want to challenge, they also need to be in that position, don't they?
Are you too far away from having that, though?
We're not a million miles away from it, but it's not as clear-cut as Liverpool.
No.
Do you know what I mean? On the left-hand side, that's an issue, as you just identified. Right, we'll hold it there because there's been another goal at Ibrox. Let's get back to David Tanner. Who's it gone to, David?
5 minutes into the second half, and it's a cross from the right that was headed home powerfully by that man again, JD Kasama. Kasama scored the opening goal tonight after 15 minutes. He scored last week against Panathinaikos, he scored the week before against Panathinaikos, and now that's 4 European goals in 3 games for the man who just joined from Sheffield Wednesday. Rangers 3 up and absolutely flying now.
Yeah, I bet it's a party atmosphere up there, that is for sure. 3 up and cruising, it would seem. Right, we're just discussing what Arsenal need to do to potentially try to catch up with Liverpool, and I'm saying they need quality. They need a bit more depth, I guess is what I'm saying, because last season we saw how the injuries really harmed Arsenal. Kai Havertz got injured, and that really derailed things for Arsenal. The left-hand side is an issue, right? So if I had 100 million, Rodrigo,
yeah,
right, that goes without saying. And then if I had some money left over, I'd try and, I don't know how much money you'd have left over from Rodrigo out of 100 million, but I'd try and use whatever I've got left over to tempt over Eze, because we need somebody to put the pressure on Martin Ødegaard. And that for me is kind of where we need to be at. But I still, and I know there's probably Arsenal supporters who won't forgive me for saying this, but I still think Liverpool are favourites, even if we do that.
Look, I think most Arsenal fans would agree with that for the reasons that we've been saying all the way through this show. That they're a frightening proposition, but Arsenal can still compete. You got to. I'd argue that Arsenal, mind you, Liverpool did keep a lot of clean sheets.
This is what I'm saying.
They're so good, but Liverpool, let me say, they're an injury away at the back from a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Centre back, they are light. They're an injury away maybe from Endo playing there, which for a long term solution probably isn't what they need. But I just think come the end of August, they'll probably have signed another centre back. They will though, won't they?
Every time there's a little bit of a green shoot.
I tried.
Yeah, every time. Gary Dagoon has been in touch saying we need another number 9 as cover for Gyökeres, and we need a good left back instead of Lewis Skelly, who's got massive potential but not the finished article. Skelly's been amazing.
Like Calafiore and Timber and
Timber tends to play on the right. I know he can play on both sides, but Calafiore's a bit injury prone, isn't he? Like we need to see him,
he has been.
We need to see him maintain a decent level of fitness and not get injured, just to see what he can do there. Because there's lots of talk about, maybe we can push Lewis Skelly into midfield because that's where he plays. That's his natural position. That's where he played for the Arsenal Academy.
Instead of who, though?
Yeah, but it's not even about for who, instead of who for me. It's more a case of like he's doing amazing things at left back. Don't change it. He's got into the England squad playing at left back.
Yeah, he was incredible in that first England game, wasn't he?
Don't change it. For me, Skelly's got to stay at left back. Just in terms of another number 9 as cover for Gyökeres, Kai Havertz plays number 9. I think those two are going to share the minutes there.
I'd be interested to see what happens with Havertz, actually, because do you think he might try and go back to maybe Havertz being in midfield for some games? I'm not saying every week.
But potentially, Mikel Arteta loves players that can play in more than one position.
I think all managers do nowadays. It's the way of the modern game.
He loves it. The only thing is, he loves Kai Havertz, physicality up top, how tall he is.
I saw a picture of him the other day.
Yeah, he's bulked up.
Yeah,
in the gym, mate. And he's looking good. But I just don't think Mikel Arteta will want to change it too much. He might play in midfield for some games, but I think he'll be up top most of the time, sharing those minutes with Victor Gyökeres. Just quickly before we go to the break, Fabio Vieira to Stuttgart. That's the talk. I think that would be a good move for Fabio Vieira, to be completely honest with you. I think his time at Arsenal has run its course.
Never really hit it off, did he?
I think he's a bit too lightweight for what Mikel Arteta wants. It's funny, in a weird way, Fabio Vieira is much more of an Arsene Wenger style player than what Mikel Arteta likes. Mikel Arteta loves big guys. That's his thing. He's into players who are all over 6 foot. And I don't think Fabio Vieira fits the bill, unfortunately.
He's only just over 5 foot, isn't he?
Yeah. Got a great song, though, which was ready-made from the original Vieira.
Yeah.
Right, so in the final hour, wow, the show has absolutely flown this evening. It always does when you have fun, Dan.
Yeah, brilliant, mate.
Yeah, in the final hour, we'll get a roundup from Europe and give our predictions on who will win the championship.
wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing a really easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket back in the 1800s. Any bowler who managed to get 3 successive wickets used to be rewarded with a hat from their club. Next up, if you see a skillful tackle, an athletic save or a 40-yard screamer, you might say these things are out the top drawer. That's because back in Victorian times, if you had wealth, valuable stuff, you kept it in the top drawer of your dresser, so loaded families became known as top drawer. Remember the last time your team left you feeling as sick as a parrot? The image of the sick bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, but the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal," as we say in my country. Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
All it is the transfer insiders there, myself, Nick Bright and Dan Bardell. We are going to talk the European market with our expert Kevin Hatchard in just a sec, but Rangers are taking on Victoria Pleasant. David Tanner is there for us. David, Rangers cruising last time we spoke.
Very much so. 61 minutes gone here at Ibrox. It's still Rangers 3, Victoria Pleasant 0. And Russell Martin gambled by dropping captain James Tavernier and 3 other big hitters, and that risk is paying dividends for him. JD Kisama has got a goal in either half. Remember, he just joined Rangers from Crisis Club Sheffield Wednesday. He timed his run to perfection, and the other goal came right on half-time from the penalty spot by Cyril Dessers. It's been a terrific performance by Rangers, lit up by the performance of debutant Oliver Antman, who signed yesterday for £4 million from Go Ahead Eagles in Holland. He's a Finnish international winger. He's been terrific. So, Rangers 3, Victoria Pleasant 0.
Thank you very much, David. David Tanner at Ibrox for us. Just before I bring in Kevin Hatchard, I just wanted to say, Dan, we were talking about volleyball in the swimming pool earlier on. Someone's messaged in to say, come on, guys, it's volley pool. Volley pool. I don't think it is. I don't think that's official.
Could catch on.
Yeah.
Could be the start of something there.
Could be what was it, Basketball? Do you remember that film?
I do remember that film.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. There you go. You're onto something there. I want 10% though. Right, anyway, let's bring in our European football expert, Kevin Hatchard. Evening, Kev.
Evening, gents. How are we?
Yeah, not too bad, my friend. I hope you are as well. Right, loads for us to go at tonight, including the pronunciation of Villa's potential new signing, which Dan is very keen to talk about. But first and foremost, we have to start with Benjamin Sesko. I'm leaning into the Sean Connery-ness of it all now.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. None of this Sesko business.
Yeah, I'm trying. Listen, we've heard so much about him, Newcastle, Manchester United, both chasing him. But for those that may not know in the same amount of detail as you, whichever team gets him, what does he bring to the table?
He brings a lot. Tall, quick, great in the air, attacks the ball really well, strikes the ball beautifully, can score from range, really good finisher, wants to link the play, has that ability to link the play, good in transition. There are moments where he doesn't make the right decision. There are moments where he's a bit raw and he might miss a sitter here and there, but he was never going to be the finished product at 22. And he's somebody that, even though Leipzig were pretty poor last season, was still well into double figures for goals and didn't just score them in the Bundesliga, scored them in the Champions League as well. So somebody who I think clubs have been very excited about for quite a long time. United were linked with him. Manchester United were linked with him years ago, a good 6 years ago. So, yeah, he's been on the radar of top clubs for quite some time. And now he's ready for that Premier League move. So there's going to have to be a little bit of patience, because any player that moves leagues and moves clubs and what have you needs a bit of settling in time. But the potential is enormous.
Kev, I'm interested to know from you, stylistically, which team does he actually suit more? Would he suit Newcastle more, or would he suit what Manchester United are trying to do with Amorim a little bit more?
I think he's quite adaptable. I could see him working as a lone striker fine. I mean, he's played in a 2 at Leipzig alongside Lewis Openda last season. Bit of a mix the season before with Yusuf Poulsen part of that team. But I think he's got the physicality, the hold-up play, the aerial ability to play as a lone striker as well. As I say, he can be a threat in transition because he actually carries the ball really well. But he can do some of that back-to-goal stuff as well. So I think either club, either Newcastle or Manchester United, I think he'd be able to adapt to whatever they wanted. I think the fact that he does have that aerial prowess, I think, would help him in Amorim's system. I think he's adaptable enough to be just as good for either club, to be honest. But the other question is, who's the more settled team, right? So Manchester United, not in Europe, lots of things to fix. Newcastle have their own issues, but they're going to be in the Champions League. Even though they've had a disastrous window so far, you've got to think that they will hit a couple of their targets eventually. So Newcastle are probably in a better place right now. But of course, Manchester United's an enormous football club.
Where do you think he'll end up? I mean, I know I'm sticking it on you a bit there.
I think Manchester United, because it does seem, I mean, they were being, they were biding their time, weren't they, really? But it does seem as though they've been encouraged by what Newcastle have done to get involved and make sure they don't miss out on him. And the feeling has been, and I don't know for certain, but there's certainly the whispers that have been in German media and in the UK as well, is that Manchester United is the club that he's personally leaning towards. But the things to always remember about that is these things change really, really quickly. Yeah. And they change with a few numbers here and there as well. So, if I had to give an answer now, I'd say Manchester United, because that seems to be what he's leaning towards. What I find really interesting is that Manchester United are prepared to pay that amount of money, not because he's not a really good player, but because it seems to me there are lots of bits to fix. But, a quality player like Sesko up front would certainly help.
Yeah. Right. Villa then. Come on, how have you been saying it, Dan?
Evan Gesson.
How's that?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Pretty close. He is, I think Dan should be excited about this.
Yes, Kev.
Because I've been saying, and you remember, Dan, actually, me talking on the TV about this guy a few months ago, because I was asked, who I thought there were players out there that Premier League clubs should be moving for, and he was one of the ones I picked because he really has kicked on in the season just gone. 12 goals, 8 assists in Liga. Really blossomed under Francaise. They had a change of coach, and he has been somebody that can really excite in different positions. He can play up front, but he can drift wide as well. He plays in that inside forward in those half spaces as well. His movement's really clever. He's strong on the ball. He's got burst of pace about him as well. I really like him. And I'm amazed, actually, that Premier League clubs haven't moved for him before now.
Oh, Kev has excited me here. This is the ultimate seal of approval for me. This is what I wanted to hear on this show tonight.
Well, we were talking...
He's really fun. Fans will love him. Honestly, fans will love him.
Is he got a trick in him then? Is that kind of what he brings to the table?
Yeah, but he's got strength as well. So he can hurt you in lots of different ways. But he's just a really smart player. Like, some of his movements really, really smart. He can go in behind. He can use his body to shield the ball. And he's not scared of playing in lots of different areas. You get some players that have their kind of hot spots where they want to be. But I think he's a bit more variable than that. And I think with a great coach like Unai Emery, I think he can go up a further level. So there's definitely a lot of potential there.
Music to Dan's ears, that's
absolutely.
for sure. Right, Gonzalo Garcia then staying at Madrid. That's interesting in itself, but it's also interesting because, it might have ramifications for Rodrigo.
Yeah, it may well do, because I know people will say, well, Rodrigo's not a striker in the way that Garcia is, but he's not going to play with pure wingers much, Xabi Alonso. So Rodrigo's route to the team would have probably been as one of those forwards. But it seems as though Rodrigo, he was pretty much sidelined really at the Club World Cup. And Gonzalo Garcia really came to prominence. He was the joint top scorer in the Club World Cup with 4 goals. He looked really sharp in front of goal. Kind of an old school, not physical in the way that Joselu was, but those kind of old school 9 instincts in the way that Joselu had. And I haven't really had that in that same way since Joselu went. Obviously, it helps to have Kylian Mbappe banging in lots of goals in a more modern way, maybe. But he does give them something different. Xabi Alonso loves him. He kept on starting him in games. He's been glowing about him publicly. And the talk in Spain is that he's going to be absolutely part of that squad. He's not going to be loaned out. He's not going to be sold. They absolutely want him to be part of the picture. Now, although Rodrigo is going to be very expensive for somebody, I have always loved him as a player. I think he gets more stick than he should about his work off the ball. I think he's improved that. And if you look at the number of games he's affected at the top level, you think of that leg double against Manchester City. You think of that volley on the run against Chelsea after that outrageous Modric assist. He got a hat-trick at 18 against Galatasaray in the Champions League. He's stone cold. And I think clubs should be, if there's even a glimmer of hope of getting him, should be falling over themselves to try and sign him.
All right, Kevin, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. That is Kevin Hatchard, European football expert. I'd love to see Rodrigo on the left-hand side at Arsenal, but I just can't see it happening, But I'm just trying to speak it into existence through reverse.
I've been doing that all night with things.
Is it working?
No, not so far. We have made a signing, though, to be fair. Before we came in tonight, I did say I'd just like us to sign someone.
And then bang.
Yeah, here we go. So maybe it does work.
Can you tell me that you'd like me to win the lottery? No?
I'd like Nick Bright to win the lottery.
There you go. It's out there now. If it happens, I'll give you a tenner. Right, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Hello there, I'm Ian Danter, talkSPORT EFL commentator. So my championship winner for the season has to be Ipswich Town. I know it's a fairly straightforward thing to say that a relegated side's got a good chance of going straight back up. But in Ipswich's case, a lot of that squad that won promotion from the championship is still there, plus some real quality that's been added.
Smollings hits it through the legs of Edison, and it's in! What a start for Ipswich Town!
My pick for championship winners at Ipswich Town. The manager, Kieran McKenna, is outstanding. Just can't see them failing to bounce back at the first attempt.
Right, prediction times. And first, I'm going to start with my championship winners, and that will be my former club, Ipswich Town. I know they struggled a little bit last season. I just feel they could have a great season and bounce back immediately to the Premier League.
And there it goes! Ipswich Town are back in the Premier League!
My championship winners are Sheffield United. I think Ruben Selles coming through the door as manager. Very, very clear identity. Fantastic football philosophy as well.
Goes right to Harmer into the penalty area, shooting and scoring. A lightning break from Sheffield United.
And I just feel that the new manager coming in, that hangover of missing out in the playoffs, they go a step further this season.
Yeah, it would have been absolutely heartbreaking them missing out in the way that they did. Right, myself and Dan Bardell on the Transfer Insiders. We're going to give our predictions in just a sec for who we think is going to win the championship. But before all of that, let's get back to Ibrox Rangers taking on Victoria Pilsen. David Tanner is there for us. David, what's the latest?
77 minutes gone now, and it's Rangers 3, Victoria Pilsen 0. The third goal has really taken the pace out of this game. You can feel as though that Rangers have got 1 foot in the Champions League playoff already, and they still have to travel to Pilsen in the Czech Republic next week. I can tell you that the big changes that Russell Martin made, the brave changes that he made to his team before the game, he's just put those right. James Tavernier, his captain, the vice-captain Nico Raskan and Danilo have all come on and were well received by the Rangers supporters. Not much to offer up front from Pilsen. They sold their star player Pavel Sulch to Lyon for £8 million this time last night. He was their inspiration, their talisman, and that has really affected them, much to Rangers' luck, I would have to say to you. But it's Rangers 3, Victoria Pilsen 0 with 12 minutes to go.
Yeah, Rangers absolutely cruising there. David, thank you very much, David Tanner at Ibrox for us. That's the way to do it, isn't it, Dan? You know, in a two-legged tie, get it done at home in the first leg, and then the fans can have a little bit of a party on the away leg. You know, going to the Czech Republic. That'd be nice for the Rangers fans.
Yeah, what you don't want now going into the tail end of the game is that consolation.
Yeah,
that kind of makes the deficit less and makes it a little bit nervy going into the second leg. Just got to see it out now as Rangers, nothing stupid.
You must be looking forward to a fair few European away days this season.
Yeah, if schedule allows. Schedule never seems to allow, but and work. But we'll try. We'll certainly try.
If the bosses are listening, Dan
Send me there,
he wants to do inserts on talkSPORT. There you go. I've put it out there for you. Who knows? I'm returning the favour for you a little bit
Thanks
earlier
very
on.
much.
Right. Speaking of the Championship, Birmingham versus Ipswich. That is a talkSPORT exclusive presented by Adrian Durham. Commentary from Joe Shannon and former Birmingham captain Troy Deeney. So make sure you tune in for that. It's on Friday night, of course, when the Championship gets underway, and we should discuss who we think might be entering the Premier League. I know that the season, it seems crazy, the season's not even started yet, but who do you think, who for you, Dan, is favourite to go up? Who do you think is going to come first?
Well, the insert we heard before, the package before we started talking, all the experts said Ipswich, and it's hard to disagree with the reasoning that was given, except for Darren Ambrose, who I know is quite biased towards Ipswich. I'm pretty sure he said they'd comfortably stay in the Premier League last year when I worked with him. But I know I love Darren, and I understand why he's chose Ipswich. I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit. Coventry would appeal to me if I was to be making a bet on someone to go up. I think when Frank Lampard first went in there and replaced Mark Robbins, I was thinking, what? Robbins had done an unbelievable job, but maybe he'd gotten a little bit stale there. He kind of hit the ceiling, but Lampard came in and kind of reinvigorated their season, and they were pretty close to going up. Didn't quite get over the line, but I'd put them in the mix. I know at some point you're going to ask me about Birmingham.
I mean,
I can feel it coming.
You've kind of preempted me completely because that is what I was going to ask.
I knew he was coming.
Look, Hollywood Birmingham, the Hollywood Blues. Do you know what I mean? They parked a couple of vans outside Villa Park the other day, didn't they? I saw that.
Small time, that is, Nick. You know that's small time.
But look, you can't ignore them as easily as maybe you could have done before because, let's be honest, there's a lot of fanfare around them now. Tom Brady being involved, of course, is a big deal. They got the documentary out there as well. But on the pitch, do you think they'll be up in the, maybe challenging for the playoffs? Maybe not going up automatically, but challenging for the playoffs?
Yeah, I do think that's a real possibility that they might be in and around the playoffs. And I think from what I've seen of them so far this summer, they've purchased well, made some exciting signings. You feel like they've got that dangerous thing of momentum. What they did in League One, look, I know how much money they spent. Obviously, you can level at them that they bought the league, but sometimes when you spend that money, it brings an added pressure. And when you've got a manager who was a rookie manager, I think there was a few eyebrows raised when he was appointed at Birmingham, Chris Davis. I don't think that's necessarily as easy a job as people make out. Certainly not when you're accumulating the points total that they got and breaking records. Yeah. So they've got momentum now heading into the Championship. They've got ambitious owners. They've got an ownership that wants to grow the club, that wants to invest in the area as well. So as much as I don't want Birmingham to do well because I'm a Villa fan, I look at them and think they've got a chance, and they're a fan base that's had a lot of misery over the last 15 to 20 years. They've had owners previously that weren't putting anything into the club. Now they've got owners that are interested and want to do all these great things. It must be a refreshing time to be a Birmingham fan.
Is there not part of you, though, Dan, that wants the derby back?
No.
Really?
Absolutely
Is that the general... Is that you personally, or is that the general feeling amongst Villa fans?
That's probably just me personally. It's a ferocious derby. That the hatred in that derby is there for everyone to see. I don't remember too many players getting punched by a fan.
Yeah.
In a local derby, like Birmingham hate Villa and Villa hate Birmingham. In my life, it's not a derby that's been played loads. Villa and Birmingham haven't been in the same league loads, but the ownership at Birmingham talk about getting them back into the Premier League, and not just getting into the Premier League, staying there and building. And I think in many ways they look at what Villa have done since they returned from the Championship, and that's kind of the blueprint, for want of a better phrase. That's what Birmingham City want to do. So I think it's almost inevitable in the next 2 or 3 years that it will appear again.
Well, just to go back to our question, if you've just tuned in, we're discussing kind of which team in the Championship do we think is going to come? Well, we're going to finish top the Championship champions. You've gone for Coventry as your outside bet.
If I had to pick someone now, it would probably be Ipswich.
Right.
But
So you're saying Ipswich, but you're saying if I could have two, Coventry is your second bet.
Yeah, I think like Birmingham, they got a little bit of momentum. They haven't really lost anyone. They've not been massively active in the transfer market. They've signed a kid from Villa who I think's got a big future and will go on to be a Premier League player in Kane Kessler-Hayden. But I just think they've kept the group together, and they had a good second half of the season under Frank Lampard.
Okay, well, just to be different then, because I do think it's hard to look past Ipswich. If they can keep the majority of the squad together, that is. We don't know what's going to happen, of course. The transfer window is still open. I'm surprised that nobody, and forgive me if somebody did, but I don't think anybody said Southampton.
No, I've looked at their business before we came on, and again, not much really happening there. It's a bit of the unknown, isn't it? Will Still, it's interesting to see what Will Still does with them, and in some ways, Southampton and Ipswich, they're almost kind of built for the Championship already, but whilst they were playing in the Premier League. So they've got some good young players there. That they'll be up there, I would think. I think the interesting story in the Championship is Leicester.
Yeah.
I don't see them being anywhere near being amongst it. They've got fears of points deduction. That's a fan base that's really in the mire at the moment, really unimpressed with what's happening to their club. I actually think they've got as much chance of going down to League One as they have of winning the thing.
That is a massive shout. That is
I genuinely think
a massive shout. So you think double relegation for?
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think there's as much chance of that happening as there is of them winning the league.
Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, for me, I think it's hard to look past Ipswich, but I'm going to throw Southampton in the mix. And also, look, I know I asked for your number one, and I'm throwing a load of teams around, but I think Ipswich, Southampton, Sheffield United. That's where I'm going. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
We know with the Championship, though, that it's never cut and dry. It's never straightforward. Yeah. Teams come from nowhere sometimes to get promoted. Not many people were calling Ipswich to do back-to-backs a few years ago. We haven't even mentioned Wrexham, who are going to be a really interesting addition to the Championship this season. They're making a big splash with some of their signings, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are, you know, and the documentary, of course, which everybody loves.
The proper documentary, the original documentary.
You would say that. That's the words of Dan Bardell, the Aston Villa supporter over there, of course. And just an honourable mention for me, actually, Portsmouth. I'd love to see them do well because it's where my mum and dad live. And I may be a little bit biased to see them do all right.
Right, okay. Stay up. Did want to stay up.
Yeah, listen, and the derby's back. You're saying you don't want a derby, but the South Coast derby between Southampton and Portsmouth, that is back. So I look forward to that one. Right, you're listening to the Transfer Insiders, Dan Bardell and Nick Bright in the hot seat. And next up, we'll look through the main headlines of the day.
Shin pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and
On on 1089 and 1053 medium wave, on DAB, online, and on your smart speaker.
Totally topical transfer talk.
Fabulous stuff.
The Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT.
This is the Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with me, Nick Bright, and Dan Bardell. Benjamin Sesko is the saga today. Our reporter Ben Jacobs will give us all the latest. Will Liverpool walk the league once again, or can anybody catch them? Also, our European expert Kevin Hatchard gives us the latest on Aston Villa's new signing, and we'll finish off on my team, Arsenal. We are so close to the league, so I can almost smell it. Can we do it this year? Time will tell. This is the Transfer Insiders. Now then, the saga with Benjamin Sesko continues. Newcastle put in a bid. Now Manchester United have put in one of their own. Our reporter Ben Jacobs gave his view on which club Benjamin Sesko would prefer.
I think we've always been told by sources, and actually more so on the Newcastle side, because Manchester United are a little bit coy because they understand the finances of this kind of deal. But generally speaking, the consensus is that if everything was even, the money to Leipzig plus the terms, that Benjamin Sesko is leaning towards Manchester United. But that's the sort of sensible nature of Newcastle's tactic, to bid first, to bid bigger than Manchester United, and to put a deadline on it. So as to say, we're not going to allow Manchester United time to level the playing field. Where Manchester United have responded, which is equally as smart, you could say, is in getting player buy-in, in getting the terms agreed with Sesko, and actually coming in higher than I think we anticipated, only 5 million below the total valuation of Newcastle's bid. So therefore, if they need to go up to equal the latest offer from Newcastle, they're probably prepared to do that. I don't think either club will go to 100 million. I think both clubs are content to get this done at 90, as long as the player says he wishes to join. So that means that as long as Manchester United are not at their top end offer, they are probably now quite confident, like Newcastle are, of agreeing a deal with Leipzig. And then it flips back to, where does the player want to go? We don't have a definitive answer yet communicated to both clubs, but the feeling remains that Benjamin Sesko has been delaying and has been waiting for Manchester United to formally enter the race. And right now, there is more confidence in the Manchester United camp on the player side. But remember, they've still got to agree that deal with Leipzig as well. Otherwise, Sesko might only have one club to choose from.
A couple of things to take away from that, Dan, I guess. You know, firstly, where do you think Sesko's going to end up?
I said earlier about I could see a world where he ends up at neither, but you just listen to Ben speak. If you're a Newcastle fan, the way he's talking, it's very concerning. Yeah. Just the tale of their summer reincarnated again with yet another player that, you know, they're doing the right things. They're sounding the player out. They're making the right bids. They're bidding more than the other clubs that are interested in them. But Manchester United just seem to have this allure that players want to go there. And if you're a Newcastle fan, you're tearing your hair out at the moment.
That was going to be my next question of the two-parter, just in terms of, it's tough to be a Newcastle supporter at the moment, just in terms of the players that they're going after. It feels like they're picking other clubs ahead of them, and it could happen once again with this move, and that would be quite catastrophic for Newcastle, with everything else that's going on in the background with Alexander Isak.
I think they're facing the real possibility of starting the season next weekend. I just don't think he's going to play in August until this gets sorted out one way or the other. If the window closes and he's still there, there'll probably be a way back. But I just don't see a way in which he's going to start the season. They've already lost Callum Wilson, who's ended up at West Ham. They've got Asula as the senior centre-forward at the moment. It's not a great place to be, and he's got talent undoubtedly, but he's very, very raw. You've not amassed a total of your squad at all. You've actually lost a couple of players if you're Newcastle here, and what should be a positive time because you've just won a trophy. You're in the Champions League again 2 years out of 3. You've got a manager who's done brilliant things at your football club, revitalised the football club. You should be able to go and spend money, and you haven't for the last 3 windows, and you've got the finance this time to be able to do it. But for whatever reason, it's just everything they try is not coming off at the moment. So I don't think there'd have been a Newcastle fan in the world that would have envisaged such a difficult summer, although I will say they haven't quite got things right behind the scenes at the moment in terms of the transfer team and the CEO, director of football for varying reasons. feel a bit messy behind the scenes at the moment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Newcastle fans might agree with you with when it comes to what's happening behind the scenes. But just in terms of the money that we're talking about here, you know, we heard 90 is what's being discussed. But Harry Symeou yesterday, he was on Transfer Insiders and he basically said that he thinks the money is too much for Benjamin Sesko. Where do you stand?
I'm not sure he'd have been saying that if Arsenal hadn't signed Gyökeres, and now we're in for Sesko. At this point, he was so desperate for a centre forward was Harry. Strikers cost more. The market's been set at a ridiculous rate, really, over the last couple of years. I was having a conversation with Flex earlier about Manchester United, and he was saying about the price for Sesko being too high. But you've set the bar because you've signed Højlund 2 years ago for a similar price, a player who wasn't quite as proven, was a prospect, but you've paid that money. So 2 years on, the fee's going to be that, isn't it? It's going to be around that. And Leipzig don't need to sell. They don't need to lose the player. I think if they don't sell him, he's not going to kick up a stink and request a transfer. I don't think he's like that, Sesko. So, you know, the prices are what they are. It's not right. It's too expensive. The money's got out of control in football, but it's where we are.
Yeah, it is what it is. Right, Rangers versus Victoria Pilsen. It's full-time at Ibrox. David Tanner.
And it's finished. Rangers 3, Victoria Pilsen 0. You can hear the Rangers supporters applauding their favourites who are taking a lap of honour at this time. Russell Martin publicly called out the egos in his squad at the weekend, and tonight dropped sensationally captain James Tavernier and 3 other big names. It's a risk that paid off with 6 new signings starting and flourishing in a new look side. Jedi Kasama, who's arrived from Sheffield Wednesday in the summer, scored early on in both halves. That's 4 goals and 3 European ties for him. Cyril Detter's back in the starting lineup, scored a penalty on half-time. They're shooting the latest Tom Holland action movie in Glasgow City Centre this week. Rangers have their own new superhero. Not Spider-Man, it's Ant-Man. Finland winger Oliver Ant-Man had a stunning debut. He was involved in all 3 goals and had a shot cleared off the line. Rangers go to the Czech Republic next week with a place in the playoffs very much in their hands now. Rangers 3, Victoria Pilsen 0.
David, thank you very much. David Tanner at Ibrox for us. A fantastic Ant-Man. Oh, that was good.
He was so glad he got to use that, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm glad he got to use that. That was top stuff, let me tell you. Absolutely top stuff there. Right, let's talk about Liverpool, Dan. Because is it a case, in your opinion, of rinse and repeat of last season? Do you think they'll go on and win the league again this year?
At the moment, they've been my pick. They were already a pretty formidable outfit. We saw what they did last season in the Premier League, winning it at a canter. We saw when they signed Wirtz, we all thought, that's a statement signing there. Geez, they're gonna take some beating again. But they've just continued to add to what was already a brilliant squad with a brilliant manager. And I think obviously with the Diogo Jota stuff as well, they've kind of got something to play for in his memory as well. So they'll be galvanised. I think they're going to be tough to beat, Liverpool.
Incredibly tough to beat. I saw someone online, I can't remember who it was, but someone online was basically saying if they get the Alexander Isak deal done, they've replaced Salah, Mane and Firmino, their front 3, and Salah's still there. It's like they've managed to replace those 3 and they've still got the main man. It's incredible business.
And still got other players that can come into that front 3 position as well. I just think we haven't really seen a window like this from Liverpool. They've signed big players before. They've spent big money before on Van Dijk, Alisson. Obviously, a lot of their signings were well-researched, kind of bargains. In the end, that team that they created under Klopp. But this is a Liverpool team that's been aggressive. It's aggressive expansion in the transfer market. They're creating a team that can fight for the Premier League, can fight for the Champions League, can rotate that squad. 2 quality players pretty much in every position, maybe other than centre-back at the moment. I think they're a frightening proposition for the challengers.
And just a word on Arne Slot. He's stepped in there, and I don't think... maybe you can correct me if you disagree, but, I don't think anybody quite expected him to do what he did last season and then to kick on again this season. I don't want to start getting carried away because I know there are so many great managers that have managed Liverpool over the years. But, if he wins the Premier League again this season, is he up there as one of the best?
I mean, if he back-to-back Premier Leagues would be a phenomenal achievement, wouldn't he? He's made taking over from Klopp look way more easy than it should ever have looked, and I don't think anyone could have ever envisaged that they'd have gone on and won the Premier League. I didn't think they'd fall away or anything like that. I probably thought they'd be had them in the top 3 at the start of last season. To do what they did was just shows what kind of manager he is. All the noise around him when he came in was that he was an astute manager and he knew what he was doing, but I don't think many people envisaged them to go on and just win the league. The way that they did it as well almost gets forgotten, and they could take a holiday at the end of the season and it didn't matter.
Well, I mean, they won it by 10 points, didn't they? But
it should have been more, realistically.
That's what I mean. They dropped some points after they'd already won it. So, yeah, like you say, they won it at a canter and then rested some players. So, yeah, I mean, if they back-to-back it, it's definitely a conversation, if you ask me. You know, like I say, I know there's been some greats that have managed Liverpool over the years, but you can't deny the achievement of back-to-back Premier League.
Klopp won the Premier League once, didn't he? And he's like a Liverpool hero.
Yeah.
You do it 2 in 2.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to get the thoughts of some Liverpool fans on that. Right, anyway, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders with Dan Bardell and Nick Bright. And next up, we'll discuss Arsenal and get the lowdown on Villa's new signing. This is the Transfer Insiders with me, Nick Bright, and Dan Bully Boy Bardell. I've just made that up.
I'd love to know what bullying I've done in this.
Just made that up. Why not? Right, let's turn our attention now to your team, though, Dan. Aston Villa. And talkSPORT understands that Villa are closing in on the signing of Nice forward Ivan Goussand. Villa are set to pay $30.5 million. And before I get your thoughts, Dan, let's hear the thoughts of European football expert Kevin Hatchard on the player.
I think Dan should be excited about this.
Yes, Kev.
Because I've been saying, and you remember, Dan, actually, me talking on the TV about this guy a few months ago, because I was asked, who I thought there were players out there that Premier League clubs should be moving for, and he was one of the ones I picked because he really has kicked on in the season just gone. 12 goals, 8 assists in Liga. Really blossomed under Francaise. They had a change of coach. And he has been somebody that can really excite in different positions. He can play up front, but he can drift wide as well. He plays in that inside forward in those half spaces as well. His movement's really clever. He's strong on the ball. He's got burst of pace about him as well. I really like him. And I'm amazed, actually, that Premier League clubs haven't moved for him before now. He's got strength as well, so he can hurt you in lots of different ways. But he's just a really smart player. Like, some of his movements really, really smart. He can go in behind. He can use his body to shield the ball. And he's not scared of playing in lots of different areas. You get some players that have their kind of hot spots where they want to be. But I think he's a bit more variable than that. And I think with a great coach like Unai Emery, I think he can go up a further level. So there's definitely a lot of potential there.
You excited hearing that, Dan?
Mate, when Kev Hatchard speaks, I listen. And he's probably come up with every kind of buzzword that I'd want to hear there when describing the player. I know bits about him, but I know nowhere near as much about him as Kev does. Filling a position that was a problem for Villa last season, I think, wide on the right, but a player that can also cover up front if needs be. Unai Emery's put a lot of credence on multifunctional players that can play in different roles at different times, and he'll add a bit of variety to our attack, a bit of pace to our attack, a bit of trickery in there as well, and will really facilitate what is already a pretty impressive front line from Villa. So it's exciting to come from nowhere as well. I think that's the thing that makes it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's more to it than just the signing in that sense, because we were having a little chat before we came in here to do this, and you were worried that Villa weren't going to do any more business because of PSR and stuff like that. So there's clearly a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, a bit of headroom. Yeah, have that PSR, have that SCR. That's how I feel right now.
I mean, in terms of the squad then going into next season, because look, everybody thought you were going to lose Emi Martinez. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, which is good news because he's a quality goalkeeper. You've just signed Gousson. That's how we're saying it, by the way.
Evan Gousson.
Yeah. Where do you think that leaves Villa going into next season then?
In a good place. They're still maybe one or two short if they do sign Gousson, but as I said earlier, that's a position that needed filling. Villa have obviously lost two big attacking players that played a big part in the second half of last season in Rashford and Asensio, and that's one replaced now in my books, although not playing in the same position as either of them. It's another attacker to come in the side, and as I said, Villa have got a lot of versatile front players that can play in the positions that Rashford and Asensio played last season. I think League One's quite an exciting league. I think when players come from League One, they find it easier maybe than some of the leagues to acclimatise into the Premier League because of the physical aspect, the pace of League One and the athletes that are in that league. So I don't think he'll need much settling in time. I think he's a plug-in-and-play player straight away, 24. Only slight disappointment is if he's an Ivory Coast international, Villa may lose him in January to the African Cup of Nations, but they'll be well aware of that, and nothing happens unless Unai Emery is happy with it at Aston Villa. So I'm assuming he's a player that Unai Emery is really keen to work with.
As an Arsenal fan, I'll tell you the transition from Liga and into the Premier League isn't always that smooth. 2 words: Nicola Pepe. Wasn't great.
Yeah,
wasn't great.
If you look back now, some of the transfers that have taken place since him, maybe if you look at his record, it wasn't that bad.
True. And yeah, true. And he scored those 2 great free kicks in the Europa League that year as well. So we'll always have that to remember.
There we
go. It's a demanding crowd at Villa Park. I think it's fair to say they demand the most from the team, and the whole end can be unforgiving if it's not going well. For you, I know you're every game season ticket holder, right?
I've seen the whole end.
Yeah, so
I'm part of what you've just described.
Yeah. Listen, look, everyone's passionate about their team. So for you then, and I know you don't speak for everybody, but just for you, what's a successful season look like for Villa this year?
we were all desperate to win something. We thought last season it might be the FA Cup, but we let ourselves down at Wembley in the semi-final against Crystal Palace. We were well beaten, and fair play to them for going on and lifting that trophy. I was really pleased for them, even though they knocked us out. But we all won a trophy. Villa won the League Cup in 1994 and the League Cup in 1996. So I was 8 and 10 when those events took place, and I just assumed that's normal life. That's what happens as a Villa fan. Turns out it's absolutely not what happens as a Villa fan, and we've won nothing since, and I'm about to turn 40, and I haven't seen us win anything since then. So,
been a roller coaster since then as well.
We're desperate for a trophy. Although I was disappointed not to qualify for the Champions League again, because it would have been huge for the football club, the Europa League is a more realistic possibility of a trophy for us. And if we can win that trophy and get that monkey off our backs, we're also then giving ourselves a pathway into the Champions League again. And that's the exciting thing about this season. There's 2 avenues into the Champions League, or 2 realistic avenues into the Champions League, with top 5 and trying to win the Europa League. And when you're trying to do that, you look at the manager and think, well, who better? He's won it so many times, expert in Europe. He's took Villa on a good run in the Champions League last season, Villarreal on a good run in the Champions League as well. This guy knows European competition and has got European pedigree. He's Villa's star man. He's Villa's differential. And if he can get the best out of that squad of players, hopefully they can go Thursday, Sunday and just give it a real good go in the league again and try and finish in and around the top 5, top 6. And please, God, just let us win a trophy. Just one. I just want to see one.
You will not be the only supporter up and down the land saying that this season, that's for sure. Right, we're going to finish then with my team, Arsenal. Dan, what do you think Arsenal need to do to be a little bit closer to Liverpool, maybe even usurp them?
I think it's a big ask. I think in many ways this transfer window, they've done what you can do. I don't think you can do much more, bar maybe an outrageous left winger, but I'm not sure what the financial headroom is to be able to pull off a move of that nature at this current time. But you've bought well. It's been an active transfer window. Actually got your business done pretty early. The problem you've got, and it's the same problem that you had for Man City for a couple of years, is you're just up against a big beast.
Yeah.
A beast that's going to be difficult to usurp. And it doesn't mean Arsenal are bad. It doesn't mean Arsenal are bottlers if they don't win that league again. You're just up against some really good teams.
Where do you stand then on the, if Arsenal don't win something this season, is there a conversation to be had about Mikel Arteta?
Not for me, because I think people overlook the overall job. I know football is about winning trophies, but the other stuff around football and creating a team and harvesting an atmosphere and getting everyone pulling in the right direction and actually going to a ground and enjoying watching your team play and feeling like you're a part of a challenge or that you're striving to win something. I think those things are big, and I think Arteta's done that really well at Arsenal. I know he gets laughed at by other fan bases at times, but overall, I think he's done a brilliant job in what wasn't an easy job when he came in as well. He almost had to go backwards to go forwards. Arsenal will be in and amongst the title race this season, and they'll be in and amongst the honours. And 3 or 4 years ago, that wasn't really a thing for Arsenal. So I don't think there should ever be a conversation about Arteta, but undoubtedly, if they don't win something, people will have those conversations.
Yeah, for me, I think that, you know, Mikel Arteta has done a sensational job since he took over at Arsenal. Where we were when he took over versus where we are now, he deserves time. And I know people will go, well, he's had 5 years. You know, he's had how much time do you want to give? But as long as we're competitive, you know, that's all you can ask for at the moment, especially when you're going up against the likes of Manchester City, the likes of Liverpool now, you know, to be pushing those guys close, getting to a Champions League semi-final, all these things. I'm happy with it. Would I like to see us win a trophy? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm also happy with the job that, you know, Mikel Arteta and the rest of the team behind the scenes are doing. Right, listen, Dan, we are out of time. It's been a pleasure.
Mate, loved it. Flew by as well, 3 hours. Jeez, that's gone fast.
Absolutely flown. One thing's for sure, though. I know that, you know, if I ever see you playing sport on TV, it's going to be volleyball.
Volleyball.
A little bit earlier.
That's the one.
Yeah, volleyball. In a swimming pool. Is that right? There you go. Right, I'm sure Dan will be back on very, very soon. And don't forget, you can get the Transfer Insiders as a podcast on the talkSPORT app, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Up next, then, it is the Sports Bar with Jason Cundy and Dean Saunders. 03717 22 33 44.